Chapter 1413. The Fall of a City. The two human-form Class 7 magical beasts of Cloud-Scattering City had been cultivating in seclusion deep underground. They immediately roused from their cultivation when they sensed something had happened to the city. They left their underground location in a single moment and silently appeared in the sky. Class 7 magical beasts were equivalent to saint rulers on the Tianyuan continent. Even on the Beast God continent, they were experts who could dominate an entire region, so the two Class 7 magical beasts were like the protector gods of the city. Many frightened magical beasts calmed down when they saw the two of them appear. The strongest magical beasts in the city were only Class 6, so they admired and trusted the Class 7 magical beasts from the bottom of their hearts. Even though they could sense that the golden snake who had produced the venomous gas was not weak, the snake had not assumed a human form, so many of them believed that the snake was not Class 7. They assumed that its venom was just potent. As a result, a few magical beasts stopped fleeing when the two Class 7 magical beasts appeared. They stopped in the distance to watch, believing that the two Class 7 experts would be able to easily slay their opponent. A beast of antiquity, a golden striped silver snake. The two Class 7 magical beasts' eyes became fixated on the huge golden snake. Their eyes narrowed by an undetectable amount while they softly exclaimed at the same time. Beasts of antiquity possessed extraordinary statuses on the continent. They often represented great potential and incomparable strength. No one was their opponent while on the same level of cultivation, and they even possessed the power to challenge those stronger than themselves. There were countless magical beasts on the Beast God continent, but beasts of antiquity were almost mythical existences. Without any exception, every appearance of a beast of antiquity would shake the continent. This was because these magical beasts would definitely be able to reach Class 8 if they matured successfully, having even a tiny chance at reaching Class 9. They were invincible among their own level of cultivation, and only other beasts of antiquity could pose a threat to them. However, the eyes of the two old men became filled with greed. The gazes they used on the huge snake underwent consequent changes, looking at the snake as though it was not a venomous golden-striped silver snake but a huge treasure. If I slay this golden-striped silver snake and consume its flesh, drink its blood, and devour its monster core, there'll be an extremely great chance at mutating so I can become even more powerful. It will lead to an even greater future for me. At this moment, similar thoughts crossed the heads of both magical beasts. Their breathing became much more rugged as soon as they considered that before them was a good chance at mutating. Without saying much, the two magical beasts struck out together. Their eyes burned with desire, wanting to kill the golden-striped silver snake in the shortest amount of time possible. The two old men silently appeared before the snake, and with a thought, they used spatial force to freeze the space there in a single moment to immobilize the snake. Afterward, their hands turned into claws, which swept across the snake's head in a single flash. They tried to kill the snake in the simplest, most efficient way possible. The snake was obviously Nubis. Nubis did not let out any of his presence and had appeared in his original form, which was why the two Class 7 magical beasts had failed to see his strength that had been suppressed to the 9th heavenly layer. They treated him as a Class 6 magical beast. Nubis sneered at them. With a slight tremor of his long body, the frozen space immediately shattered, unable to stop him at all. Afterward, his long body suddenly moved. He traveled extremely quickly, tightly wrapping around the weaker Class 7 magical beast in a single golden flash before he could react. Afterward, he opened his mouth and bit the other magical beast. With a crack, the magical beast's arm was bitten off by Nubis. The peak Class 7 magical beast produced a grunt of pain. His face immediately paled as he retreated with lightning-like speed while in disbelief. His gaze toward Nubis was filled with shock. The blood where his missing limb rapidly blackened. Not only had Nubis bitten off his arm, he had injected his body with venom. The venom caused the magical beast to helplessly tremble. Why, you're not Class 6, but Class 7 and at the peak of Class 7. The magical beast cried out. Only now did he suddenly understand that the snake before him was not as weak as he had imagined. His strength was something he could not handle. Nubis smiled. He did not assume a human form, but he spoke human tongue. You're right. I, the great newbies, have stopped being Class 6 magical beast long ago, but you learned that too late unfortunately. The peak Class 7 magical beast's face changed drastically. Without any hesitation, he suppressed the venom within him, abandoned the city he had invested several years in and began to flee. Newbies did not pursue him. He stared coldly and ruthlessly at the other magical beast that he had wrapped around, and his body tightened suddenly. Twisting like a meat grinder, the Class 7 magical beast was forcefully squashed to death, his bones obliterated. Bang! Suddenly, the magical beast's head exploded and his soul emerged. He fearfully flew off into the distance in a flash. However, a golden light flashed before he could escape far. Newbie's tail cut through the air from afar, catching up to the fleeing soul in a single moment. Being struck, the soul immediately dispersed, killing the expert completely. The venomous gas had already engulfed a small portion of the city. It expanded even further under the slight breeze, and in the distance, all the magical beasts stood there stunned as they gazed at the sky. Shock filled all their eyes. The two powerful Class 7 magical beasts had actually been beaten into retreat so quickly. One of them fled while the other one had died, astounding all the magical beasts in the city. Suddenly, a roar filled with fear rang out. A 3-meter-long, cat-like magical beast covered in scales had cried out and fled into the distance as quickly as it could. All the other magical beasts in the city returned to their senses. All of them fled for their lives, pushing their speed to their limits. A series of heavy footsteps rang out from below. From today on, this city no longer exists. This place will become a part of my vast territory. Remember my name. I am the beast of antiquity, the golden-striped silver snake, the great newbies. Newbies did not hunt all of them down and instead laughed aloud in the sky. He remained in his snake form and did not turn into a human. A beast of antiquity, it's actually a beast of antiquity. Chapter 14:14. Luring the snake out of its hole, he is the great newbies. The great newbies has destroyed Cloud Scattering City. This is now his territory. At that moment, all the fleeing magical beasts memorized Newbie's name. In the blink of an eye, the city fell into a dead silence. The entire city was engulfed by the poisonous gas, leaving a large number of magical beasts collapsed on the ground. Newbies looked at the fleeing magical beasts and secretly hesitated. He murmured to himself, "It doesn't seem to be enough. Wiping out a city doesn't seem to be enough to broadcast my great name across the entire continent. Looks like I need to keep going at it." With that, Newbies suddenly opened his mouth and sucked. The gas across the entire city immediately surged violently, having all been sucked back into Newbie's mouth. In just a few seconds, no traces of the gas were left at all. Only the vegetation that had been reduced to dust and a few shriveled trees remained, as if they were silently narrating what had just happened. Newbies left. Soon after he had left the area, a few magical beasts on the ground gently trembled before standing up with great difficulty. Without any exception, they were all Class 6 magical beasts. More and more magical beasts gradually stood up. Although they had all stood up with great difficulty, they were not dead. Newbies had become a saint emperor, so he had mastered control over his own venom. He was able to use it as he pleased. The venom from before seemed potent, turning the vegetation to dust in a single moment and even withering ancient trees, yet the venom did not kill any magical beasts in the city. It had just knocked them unconscious. The magical beasts did not stay in the city after waking up. They glanced at the sky in lingering fear. Although they could not see Newbies anymore, their fear for him had already overwhelmed them. They all left the city one by one. The city became a true ghost town, without any presence of life at all. Very soon, the magical beasts that had fled spread the news of what had happened, throwing the surrounding region of several tens of thousand kilometers in great shock. The news gradually spread further as well. The fall of a city guarded by Class 7 magical beasts was quite a significant matter within the surrounding radius of 1,000,000 kilometers. Newbies' infamy gradually spread as well. Newbies did not pay too much attention to the shock he had caused in Cloud Scattering City, because he believed that destroying a city guarded by just Class 7 magical beasts would not be enough to shake the continent. It would not be enough to draw out the snake that was hiding in an unknown location, so he turned his eyes to a powerful organization protected by a Class 8 magical beast. There were no longer a lot of Class 8 magical beasts left on the continent. Most of them had died in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. Only a small number had survived. The Firefinch tribe was a great organization even with the entire continent in perspective. The Firefinch clan owned a lot of territory. The Firefinch clan was originally a nameless clan on the continent and had only begun to rise in the past millennia. They began to stand out on the continent because of 3 mutated Firefinches had appeared together in a single generation. 2 of them had reached Class 8 over 1,000 years ago, immediately making the clan a peak-level organization on the continent. The remaining mutated Firefinch had reached the peak of Class 7 and was close to Class 8 as well. More recently, the tribe had been engulfed by heavy sorrow because one of their protectors had fallen in the battle against the foreign world on the Tianyuan continent. They had even failed to retrieve his corpse, which was an extremely heavy hit to the tribe. As the clansmen still dwelled in great grief, a golden ribbon suddenly shot over from far away. It moved extremely quickly, arriving above the tribe in the blink of an eye. Up close, the golden ribbon was a huge snake several thousand meters long, but it was only as thick as a tree. It was Newbies in his beast form. I've finally found a Class 8 magical beast after so much searching. Newbies exhaled high up in the air. In order to find a Class 8 magical beast, he had crossed countless mountains and forests, traveling a great distance along the way. He had finally found one here after great difficulty. Of course, the several organizations with Class 7 magical beasts he came across along the way all suffered disasters. However, Newbies held back. He only killed Class 7 magical beasts when the organization possessed 2 or more. He would always let one flee and would broadcast his identity as a golden-striped silver snake, as if he worried that the magical beasts that fled did not know what he was. Newbies erased his presence, which prevented the Class 7 magical beasts in the tribe to discover his existence. However, the Class 8 magical beast had discovered Newbies the first moment he had arrived. The space before Newbies gently rippled and a burly, middle-aged man with long, red hair silently appeared. His skin was crimson and even his eyes were red. A beast of antiquity, a golden-striped silver snake. The middle-aged man was the only Class 8 magical beast left in the Firefinch clan. He recognized Newbies with a single glance, and a gleam of surprise flashed through his eyes, along with a smear of joy. Newbies glanced over the man with his cold, merciless eyes before turning around and fleeing without any hesitation at all. He flew into the distance extremely quickly, as if he had taken off in desperate flight. The middle-aged man sneered and mumbled, "Beasts of antiquity are extremely rare. There aren't many even across the entire continent, while the one before me just happens to be a golden-striped silver snake. They're a unique species. They have intense hatred for their own clansmen and will never give up fighting unless one of them dies if they ever meet. There's no need to worry about any experts supporting him. This beast of antiquity just happens to be weak. I can kill him with a flip of my hand. Even though I've already reached Class 8, devouring a beast of antiquity still has great benefits, and even if I have no use for the essence that can only be devoured by their other clansmen, I can offer it up to that lord." The middle-aged man immediately pursued the snake. With his strength as a Class 8 magical beast, catching up to Newbies was naturally a piece of cake. The distance between the two of them shrank very soon. Newbies did not panic at all when he saw the middle-aged man grow closer and closer to him. Instead, he sneered and thought, "You can catch up to me, the great Newbies, only because I want to complete my scheme. So what if I have to be pursued by you for a while to draw out that old snake? I can't reveal the strength of the 8th class and scare that old snake. Only with strength of the 7th class will that old snake come kill me without any hesitation at all." Chapter 14:15. The old snake appears. The Class 8 expert of the Firefinches pursued Newbies as he fled. The two of them both used spatial force, so they moved extremely quickly. Their figures flashed through space as faint blurs, disappearing in the horizon in the blink of an eye. The Class 8 Firefinch had already reached the level of Saint Kings on the Tianyuan continent. He possessed a great mastery over space through his comprehension of the mysteries of the world. Both his control over spatial force and the energy within him was incomparable to a peak Class 7 magical beast, but today he found it extremely difficult to catch up to the peak Class 7 silver-striped rainbow snake in front of him. Although the golden-striped silver snake moved at speeds much slower than him, whenever he pulled up to the snake would shine with golden light and his speed would immediately skyrocket, reaching an unbelievable level. It would pull far ahead in just the blink of an eye, preventing the Class 8 expert from catching up no matter how much he tried. He had tried to freeze the space around the snake numerous times in an attempt to immobilize newbies, but to his surprise, the snake was like a slippery worm where even frozen space could not trap it. With a squirming motion, the snake would easily break free of the frozen space and continue on without slowing down at all. He had considered using space gates, but space gates were only a convenience for traveling and not for pursuing a specific target. The target could change direction beforehand when it sensed the ripples in space and run off. By the time he had emerged from the space gate, the target might have already disappeared into the horizon, so space gates were ineffective for chasing people down. When newbies glowed with golden light again and exploded with speed, pulling far away from the Firefinch, the Class 8 expert finally became angry. His face became extremely dark. He felt ashamed that it was so difficult to catch up to a peak Class 7 magical beast. He was an expert at Class 8 and felt that his dignity as a Class 8 magical beast had been severely trampled over. You sure are worthy of being a golden-striped silver snake. Your fleeing secret technique really is very powerful, where I am unable to catch up to you in a short amount of time. However, you must consume a lot of energy when you use this type of secret technique. It's impossible for you to last very long, so I'd like to see just how much further you can flee, the Class 8 Firefinch grumbled inside with gritted teeth. Newbie seemed like he was in a desperate flight, but through his eyes he was completely relaxed. He did not view the Class 8 expert behind him with any importance. Instead, he was even in the mood to admire the scenery around him as he fled. He suppressed his strength to the peak of Class 7, but he was still a Class 9 magical beast after all. How could a mere Class 8 magical beast catch up to him? An hour later, newbies passed by a large tribe and came to a halt. He gazed down and his eyes immediately lit up. He opened his mouth and spat out a dense cloud of venomous gas before continuing on without even looking back. Behind him, the Class 8 Firefinch whistled through the air with his tremendous presence. He did not stop at all, charging after newbies. At the same time, a furious, ground-shaking roar rang out from the large tribe below. The ground cracked open and a huge bear over 30 meters in height climbed out. It was covered with spotless, snow-white fur, standing there like a small mountain. The bear stood in newbie's venomous gas and looked at the groups of clansmen who had collapsed. His eyes immediately reddened, and he roared at the sky. He turned into a white stream of light and pursued newbies. His body underwent a transformation as well, changing from a huge, white bear into a 4-meter-tall, burly man in just a few seconds. He radiated with a tremendous presence since he was also a Class 8 magical beast. In just the blink of an eye, newbies had fled for 2 days and the Class 8 magical beasts pursuing him had increased from 2 to 5. He had only come across these magical beasts after running across quite a fraction of the continent and he managed to offend all of them. However, without any exception, they were unable to catch up to newbies no matter what they did. Newbies did not fight against the magical beasts and instead lead them all over the continent. Wherever he passed by, he would shock all the magical beasts and cause a great disturbance. The news of 5 Class 8 magical beasts pursuing a single golden-striped silver snake spread rapidly as well, crossing the entire continent very soon. If newbies only assumed his original form and exposed himself on the continent, it would lead to a commotion as well, but it would not be as great as 5 Class 8 magical beasts pursuing a single Class 7 magical beast. This was because Class 8 magical beasts themselves were moving centers of attention. They would catch the eyes of people no matter where they went, let alone 5 of them trying to hunt down a Class 7 magical beast that was not as powerful as them. Let alone now, this had never happened in the history of the continent. It would still be reasonable if there were several peak Class 7 magical beasts pursuing a heavily injured Class 8, but the other way around was just far too unbelievable. In a swamp covered with poisonous gas over 10 million kilometers away from newbies, a gold-robed old man currently sat in a dank, dark cave as he cultivated. The old man's skin shone with a faint, golden color. Although his appearance was not particularly eye-catching, he had a dignified bearing, clearly groomed from being of high status. Suddenly, the old man slowly opened his eyes. He stared outside with his deep eyes. His gaze seemed to be able to pierce the obstruction of the rocks, allowing him to see the distant beast god hall. His eyebrows furrowed with some worry. I wonder if the battle between the beast god continent and the world of Forsaken Saints has ended and how the battle ended. I may have vaguely sensed the return of many Class 8 magical beasts over the past few days, but there are just far too few compared to the number that had left. Back when the Pring Emperor called on all the Class 8 magical beasts in his territory to defend the Tianyuan continent from the invasion of the world of Forsaken Saints, he swore to put his life on the line to protect our world, but according to what I know, the world of Forsaken Saints is just far too powerful. They might not achieve victory even if the 4 races work together. I may be at the peak of Class 8, but even I am not completely confident I could survive this battle. As a result, I chose to leave my nest and hide in this obscure place by myself, escaping from the Pring Emperor's summoning. I wonder if the Pring Emperor has returned or not, and if he has discovered that I deserted the battle against the foreign world. If he finds out and looks into it. The old man thought inside. He felt very uneasy, because he was one of the people specifically named by the Pring Emperor for the battle against the foreign world. However, he worried that he would die, so he had not participated. At this moment, a small, skinny old man appeared silently outside the cave like a ghost. He said with a hunched back, "Ancestor, it's rumored that a peak Class 7 golden-striped silver snake has appeared on the Beast God continent and is currently being pursued by 5 Class 8 experts." The old man in the cave immediately flickered with golden light when he heard that. He suddenly stood up and arrived outside the cave excitedly. He stared at the small old man fixedly with a venomous gaze and hurriedly asked, "Are you sure? A peak Class 7 golden-striped silver snake has appeared outside?" "Ancestor, that was what I heard, but I did not confirm the rumor. However, I've already sent people to investigate the truth of this matter and believe that they will report back very soon," the skinny old man politely replied. However, as soon as he finished speaking, his face suddenly changed. He removed an ancient piece of jade from his space ring, and with a flash, a piece of information was delivered through the jade. "Ancestor, the people I've sent have already investigated this rumor completely. The matter is completely true," the skinny old man immediately confirmed. His voice bore a sliver of joy. The golden-robed old man was overjoyed. He chuckled aloud, Good. Heaven must be on my side. I never thought that a golden-striped silver snake would appear at a time like this, and that it would be at the peak of Class 7. I've been stuck at the peak of Class 8 for many years now, only requiring a single step to reach Class 9. If I devour the essence of that little snake, I might end up breaking through to Class 9. At that time, would there still be any need for me to fear the Pring Emperor and hide here? Chapter 14:16. You're actually Class 9. The gold-robed old man was extremely ecstatic. His eyes burned with desire as an urgent eagerness welled up within him. This was the attraction of the 9th class. Once he reached Class 9, he would be like the Saint Emperors on the Tianyuan continent. He would stand above countless people. Even across the entire Beast God continent, there were only 3 Class 9 magical beasts. Every single one of them ruled an entire region of the continent and reigned supreme there. More importantly, the gold-robed old man was almost at the end of his 6,000-year lifespan. If he did not make a breakthrough, he would not have much time left, so the 9th class possessed a fatal attraction to him. Not only would it allow him to become the 4th esteemed champion of the continent, but it also represented 4,000 years of life as well. After that, The gold-robed old man learned the exact location of the peak Class 7 golden-striped silver snake from the skinny old man before leaving through a space gate. Over 10 million kilometers away, Newbies continued to flee, desperately, in his original form. Every time the powerful experts behind him were about to catch up, he would always flash with a golden light and explode with speed, shooting off into the distance at an unbelievable rate and immediately pulling far away from the people behind him. His jump in speed would make all the Class 8 experts clench their fists in anger, but they were without any other choices. Along the way, Newbies would always stop temporarily and cause mayhem for any organization with a Class 8 expert he came across, as if he was afraid that there was not enough Class 8 magical beasts behind him. This led to an increase from the initial 5 that tailed him to 8. Why is this golden-striped silver snake so hard to deal with? He's used his secret technique countless times along the way, but he doesn't seem to show any signs of exhaustion at all. He's still brimming with vigor. Does the secret technique he used not cause him any harm or exhaustion? Similar thoughts crossed the minds of the 8 Class 8 experts multiple times. The 8 of them had used everything they had, every method that could immobilize people along the way, but these abilities that could even temporarily freeze experts of the same class did not have any effect on the peak Class 7 snake at all. The Class 7 golden-striped silver snake was just far too difficult to catch. Some of the Class 8 magical beasts even wanted to stop chasing him. However, whenever they thought about how the damned Newbies had used his venom to attack their clansmen without any reason, they would immediately clench their teeth again and their eyes would redden with anger. They continued their endless pursuit of Newbies. Once I catch him, I'll peel his skin, eat his flesh, and drink his blood. So what if he's a beast of antiquity? If I catch him, I'll definitely make him wish he was better off dead. God damn it. This golden-striped silver snake is clearly only at the peak of Class 7, but it's provoked all of us without any fear. This is abnormal. Does this snake have some kind of scheme? And regarding his strength, maybe he's not the peak of Class 7 like he seems on the surface. Maybe he reached Class 8 long ago. None of the Class 8 magical beasts were dim-witted. They discovered something off very soon, but they still did not give up the pursuit. Now I've surely created a large enough disturbance. 8 Class 8 experts pursuing a peak Class 7 beast of antiquity will definitely cause quite the commotion on the Beast God continent. It'll spread as quickly as it can. I just wonder if that old snake has received the news, Newbies thought. He appeared desperate, but he did not even glance at the Class 8 magical beasts behind him. He moved forward without any specific direction, running wherever there was a city or a tribe, as long as there were a lot of magical beasts. God damn it, if that old snake just happens to be in seclusion and hasn't received the news, do I, the great Newbies, have to just continue like this? Newbies thought of a terrible possibility soon afterward. His head immediately began to ache. But at that moment, the space several dozen kilometers away from him began to violently distort. A space gate rapidly formed. Before a figure was even visible, a powerful presence leaked out, actually causing the space several hundred kilometers away to ripple. The energy of the world there seemed to stop moving. The range of the extremely powerful presence included Newbies and the 8 Class 8 magical beasts behind him. It immediately caused the 8 of them to slow down. A gleam of interest flashed through Newbies' eyes. He suddenly turned his head toward the space gate several dozen kilometers away and purposefully slowed down. The Class 8 magical beasts behind all became shocked and stopped pursuing one by one. They all stared in the direction of the space gate. The presence was just far too powerful. They immediately felt like they were carrying a huge mountain on their back when the presence engulfed them, causing their bodies to grow heavier. Even the space around them seemed to be pressured by the presence, causing it to feel like mud and making movements extraordinarily difficult. The peak of Class 8. This is an expert at the peak of Class 8. A 4-meter-tall man cried out. He became very stern. He was the huge white bear that Newbies had provoked. As soon as he finished speaking, an old man in gold robes and golden hair slowly stepped out of the space gate. In his cold, ruthless gaze, there was a condescending presence, as if he was a lord that stood in heaven and reigned above life. However, The old man truly did possess that status on the beast god continent. He was a beast of antiquity and had reached the great perfection of Saint King. Aside from the 3 Class 9 experts, there was no one who could defeat him. The moment newbies saw the old man, he immediately became overjoyed. His eyes burned with desire, as if the old man was not a peak Class 8 expert but a glistening treasure. At the same time, the old man caught sight of newbies several dozen kilometers away. His eyes became filled with the same light that was filling newbies' eyes, also becoming overjoyed with a burning desire. The old man took a single step, and with the slight rippling of space around him, he immediately vanished. When he reappeared, he was already several dozen kilometers away, right in Newbie's way. He looked at Newbies greedily as he said in excitement, "He's right, he's right. It really is a peak Class 7 golden-striped silver snake. Thank the heavens for siding with me." The 8 Class 8 magical beasts stopped quite far away. They looked at the gold-robed old man in fear and respect. Even though they were filled with hatred for Newbies and were tempted to immediately kill Newbies off since he had stopped running away, they dared not to step forward. The golden-striped silver snake that was several thousand meters long had vanished from the sky, replaced by Newbies in human form. He had returned to being a handsome young man with golden robes and hair. He stared at the old man as his eyes burned with desire. His lips curled into an odd malevolent smile. "Old bastard, I, the great Newbies, have finally lured you out. I never thought that your strength would be so great, having already reached the peak of Class 8 and only a step away from Class 9, Newbies sneered. With that, the 8 Class 8 experts in the distance all showed different expressions. They stared at Newbies in surprise. None of them had considered that Newbies had provoked them to create a disturbance and lure out this peak Class 8 expert. The gold-robed old man sneered, "Little guy, you've made a miscalculation. You may have hidden your strength, posing as Class 7 despite being Class 8, but I've reached Class 8 long ago and now stand at the peak of the 8th class. Before me, you don't even have the ability to flee." Newbies laughed aloud and stared at the old man as if he was looking at a joke. He said, "Old bastard who said that I, the great Newbies, need to flee? You're the one who should be running." A presence great enough to make the surroundings tremble radiated from Newbies as soon as he finished speaking. The presence was just far, far greater than the golden-robed old man. As soon as the presence had appeared, the region of earth below them was pressed down and cracked. Under his presence, all the vegetation and trees in the surroundings were crushed to dust. The 8 Class 8 experts revealed a much worse expression at that moment. Their gazes became filled with shock as they all paled. They all stared at Newbies, trembling, having become absolutely terrifying. "Class 9, he's actually Class 9. We've actually been hunting down a Class 9 expert this entire time," the 8 Class 8 experts lamented inside. Their hearts quivered and they seemed to feel their blood flow in the opposite direction. They had even made up their minds about death. The old man had lost his calmness and composure from before as well. He stared at Newbies in disbelief as he cried out, "You're actually Class 9. Chapter 14:17. Devastation. The old man paled. Not even a shred of blood was left on his face. He was scared witless now that Newbies had displayed his presence as a Class 9 magical beast, because he was also a golden-striped silver snake. He knew too well what the outcome of 2 snakes meeting each other would be. Without any hesitation, the old man immediately turned around and fled into the distance as quickly as he could. At the same time, he used a secret technique. He vomited a mouthful of blood and immediately became much more haggard. He paid the price of heavily injuring himself in exchange for supreme speed to flee the area. He wanted to disappear before Newbies could even react. He did not use a space gate because creating one would take some time. He would be looking to die if he tried using a space gate to flee from a Class 9 magical beast. Newbies sneered. "The great Newbies have endured such a great embarrassment. I endured the pursuit of these Class 8 magical beasts across half of the continent only to draw you out of your nest after quite some difficulty. If you flee, wouldn't that mean I did all that for nothing?" Newbies did not pursue the gold-robed old man. He just sneered. Extending a finger, he immediately shot out a golden stream of light, which traveled toward the old man who had vanished into the horizon at unbelievable speed. The golden light was only as thick as a finger. Up close, through the hazy golden light, a golden thread was visible inside. It was only as thick as a chopstick, but it hid shocking amounts of energy. The golden thread pierced through space and disappeared. It seemed to be able to break the limitations of space and move through time, catching up with the old man in a single moment. Afterward, it expanded into a huge net, enveloping the old man. The old man's face changed. He roared at the sky and immediately began to shine with a golden light. There was a faint layer of blood red within it. A terrifying pulse of energy shook the surroundings, causing the space around him to tremble violently, almost shattering. He threw a punch at the sky, shattering the space while a terrifying amount of energy condensed into a huge punch, striking the huge golden net. He wanted to smash through the net. The old man paled even more after the punch. He knew extremely well what the outcome waiting for him was as soon as he was caught by newbies, so not only did he explode with all his strength as a saint king at great perfection, he had even used a supreme secret technique by burning his own essence blood. The punch he had just thrown was at the cost of his essence blood as well. The old man did not care about what the punch did. He continued to burn his essence blood, enduring the consequence of heavy injuries to wildly flee. He knew that it was impossible for him to be faster than a saint emperor with his strength at great perfection. Only by burning his blood to move at speeds beyond what his strength offered did he have a tiny chance of surviving. The golden punch shattered space, causing all the space it moved through to crack. It struck the falling net with a devastating presence. The collision of the net and punch did not result in any great boom. However, the net ended up bulging because of the punch. The old man's shocking attack at the cost of his essence blood had failed to disperse the net. You dare to resist the great newbies, even as a mere Class 8 magical beast? Newbies sneered from afar. A golden thread on his finger was connected to the net, and with a single thought, the net immediately began to shrink, enveloping the fist and quickly wearing away the energy within it. At the same time, another golden thread separated from the net. With the net as its origins, it stabbed into empty space and disappeared. It moved through the void, completely ignoring the distance between it and the old man and catching up to him in a single moment. The old man clearly sensed the golden thread pursuing him as well. His face immediately changed, becoming horrendous. However, the golden thread shot over like an arrow and did not give the old man any time to react. It stabbed into his back with a faint golden glow, piercing him and passing through his chest. Afterward, it immediately began to wrap around him again and again, tying him up like a badly wrapped present. At this moment, the thin golden thread had already extended several dozen kilometers away. It had crossed an entire region of space, reaching from the eastern horizon into the western. If someone stood at its center, it would have been impossible for them to see what the two ends were connected to. In such a short moment of time, the gold man had managed to flee several dozen kilometers. While the golden thread did not actually pass through the void of space, it moved just far too quickly. Newbies tugged his finger and the tightly wrapped old man was immediately pulled over to him from the horizon. Newbies could not help but laugh aloud as he stared at the ashen old man. "Old bastard, can you still be arrogant now? To think that you wanted to devour the great newbie's essence and reach Class 9. Why, you're a golden-striped silver snake who has just reached Class 9. Experts who have just reached Class May 9th be much more powerful than me, but I am not completely helpless against them either. I'll be able to fend off a few attacks at the very least. Have you reached Class 9 recently? Impossible. I've never heard of another Class 9 expert aside from the 3 on the Beast God continent." Newbies chuckled aloud. "I may have just reached Class 9, but who would have ever thought that I had a great brother? With my brother's help, I'm no longer any ordinary Class 9 magical beast, even if I've just reached it. How can you be my opponent with your mere peak Class 8 strength?" Chapter 14:18. The Submission of Class 8 Magical Beasts. Impossible. This is impossible. Once you reach Class 8, each heavenly layer is extremely difficult to attain, And at Class 9, it's even more difficult. Since you have only just become a Saint Emperor, it's impossible for you to break through the first heavenly layer and reach a higher level of cultivation. The gold-robed old man was in a daze. Even though he was filled with despair, he also found it very difficult to believe that newbie's strength had increased so quickly even after reaching Class 9 not too long ago. Newbies smiled even wider when he saw how dejected the old man had become. He was in great spirits. He had learned long ago that there was an extremely powerful golden-striped silver snake hiding on the Beast God continent, which was why he had always remained hidden on the outskirts of the Cross Mountains. He did not join the Gilligan clan within the mountains, primarily to avoid the threat on the Beast God continent. This was because he had only been a Class 7 magical beast before. He possessed a natural sense of dread and fear for the old snake he had only heard about on the Beast God continent, extremely worried that the old snake would secretly make his way to the Tianyuan continent and deal with him. This was why newbies had chosen to hide in the outskirts of the Cross Mountains. It was closest to Mercenary City, so he could flee into the city if the old snake really did come. In a sense, the old snake on the Beast God continent burdened his heart like an invisible mountain, maintaining a great psychological pressure. He even moved around carefully at all times, afraid that the news of him being a golden-striped silver snake would be learned by even more people. Afterward, the old snake on the Beast God continent snuck his way onto the Tianyuan continent when the Beast God continent attacked and was slain by the Grand Elder of Mercenary City, who he obtained the corpse from. After devouring the old snake's hidden essence, he inherited a small portion of the snake's memory. He had learned that there was actually an even more powerful old snake on the Beast God continent, and the snake that had been killed by Tianjian had always been controlled by the stronger, older snake. Newbie's heart sank once he had learned this. He feared the more powerful snake even more. He had also decided that the Beast God continent was a region he would never set foot on in his life. Yet now, as he gazed at the snake that had once made him fear and burdened him mentally, who was laying powerlessly in his hands, he was immediately overwhelmed by an indescribably sense of delight. He was tempted to roar out in joy in that moment. It's a pity that the medicine that I had spent great efforts in nurturing died on the Tianyuan continent, or I would have become a Saint Emperor, the gold-robed old man murmured as regret filled his face. At this moment, the 8 Class 8 magical beasts who had pursued newbies before all erased their presences and began to silently back off. They wanted to escape. The 8 of them were all utterly terrified, where not even a shred of blood remained on their faces. They trembled gently all over as their hearts became filled with an intense fear. Some of them had even become filled with regret. They all cursed how newbies was a powerful Class 9 expert, yet he had disguised himself as a Class 7 magical beast just to fool them, leading the 8 of them to recklessly chase a Class 9 magical beast across half the continent. If they had known that newbies was a Class 9 magical beast, they would not have chased him even if they were 100 times braver. Newbies narrowed his eyes and his lips curled into a sneer. He slowly turned his head to the 8 magical beasts trying to flee and said, "Little brats, you've chased the great newbies for so long. Why do you plan on running off silently now?" The 8 magical beasts immediately froze when they heard newbies. All their hearts skipped a beat and they all revealed extremely ugly faces, along with some despair. Extending a finger, a silver thread shot out from its tip as newbies tied up the 8 of them. He chuckled aloud, "You brats, I'll get to you after I deal with this old snake." Afterward, newbies killed the gold-robed old man mercilessly and used a secret technique to devour his essence. This was the 3rd time newbies had devoured the essence of another golden-striped silver snake. The one he had devoured previously possessed the strength of a 4th heavenly layer Saint King. He had only been a saint ruler when he had devoured it, and the disparity in strength had just been far too great. This was why newbies expended an extremely lengthy period to devour all the essence, but also why his strength had increased by leaps and bounds. Now that newbies was a Saint Emperor, devouring the essence of the old snake who was only at the great perfection of Saint King would not increase his power, but it would strengthen his own essence by quite a bit, bringing him great benefits. Newbies flickered with a faint, golden light all over after draining the old snake's essence. His strength remained the same as before, but his presence had vaguely strengthened. Afterward, newbies looked at the 8 Class 8 magical beasts and snickered. "It's your turn now. You've chased the great newbies for so long, so how should I deal with all of you?" The hearts of the 8 magical beasts tightened. Some of them immediately dropped their knees and bowed their heads. An odd smile appeared across Newbie's face as he looked around at the 8 magical beasts trapped in his silver thread. After a moment of thought, he said, "Whatever. You may have chased me halfway across the continent, but if that did not happen, it would have been impossible to draw out this old snake. Your lives may be spared, but there will still be punishment. From today on, I, the great newbies, am your lord. Do you have any disagreements?" Spared with their lives intact, the 8 magical beasts beamed with joy. They all hurriedly exclaimed, "We thank the great newbies for sparing our lives. From today on, we are willing to obey the great newbies' commands." They were extremely ecstatic. The punishment newbies had mentioned did not seem like punishment at all in their eyes. Instead, it was a blessing that many large tribes dreamed of. The brutality of the Beast God continent surpassed the Tianyuan continent. Conflict would often occur between organizations with Class 8 magical beasts, and the fall of clans was a common sight. Although they were protected by the 3 great experts of the continent, they never interfered with the conflict of others, because there were countless organizations of all different shapes and sizes in the territory they controlled. Even the destruction of a large organization would not garner too much attention. However, Newbies was different. From their understanding, Newbies had just reached Class 9, yet he possessed strength greater than regular Class 9 magical beasts. He just happened to not be in control of any organizations, so if the 8 of them yielded, they would become his first wave of power. They would naturally be particularly favored, allowing them to possess extraordinary statuses. Newbies smiled in satisfaction. He waved his hand and said, "You can go. As for the clansmen back in your tribes, their lives have not been threatened. I've only knocked them out, so they should have awakened by now. Oh yeah, once you go back, don't forget to raise a statue of me, the great newbies, in your tribes. The statue has to be made out of pure gold. Only that is suitable for my great status." The 8 magical beasts all furiously nodded. They all raised their heads to look at Newbies carefully, burning his appearance into their minds. After the 8 of them had left, Newbies rolled up one of his wide sleeves. It immediately revealed his golden arm, and on his arm, a vague golden layer of light rotated on its surface. A special patterning covered his entire arm. In detail, the special pattern was actually similar to scales, but they were not very similar to snake scales. They had not consolidated right now, so they were very blurry, as if they had not grown properly yet. Chapter 14:19. A confident Newbies looking at the special, scale-like patterning on his arm, Newbies faintly smiled. He was rather excited as he murmured, "The essence of this old snake is even more intense than the 4th heavenly layer Saint Kings I absorbed before. I feel like I've consumed some extremely effective medicine that has rejuvenated me, making my body undergo some extremely evident changes. My strength may still remain the same as before, but I feel like my battle prowess is even greater than before. This old snake must have devoured the essence of a few other clansmen in his life, which is why his essence is so intense." Newbies rolled his sleeve back down and his slightly golden arm was immediately covered up. He looked up at the continent he had once yearned and feared for and murmured, "The Beast God continent really is a great place. It's a suitable habitat for magical beasts. There are definitely many more magical beasts in these lands than on the Tianyuan continent, but unfortunately, it's no longer as attractive as it was to me now. And regarding that old snake, he must have stayed here for several millennia already. He may not have full control over every inch of land here, but with his strength, expanding his view across the entire continent shouldn't be too difficult. Once golden-striped silver snakes appear on the continent, they definitely won't be able to avoid his senses. Probably all the golden-striped silver snakes on this continent have already been killed by that old snake, so there's no need for me to stay any longer either. Whatever, I'll go look for Jian Chen on 3 Saint Island." With that, Newbies shot off into the distance as a golden streak of light. He did not use a space gate and instead flew. He enjoyed the scenery along the way as he leisurely traveled toward Three Saint Island. Once the 8 Class 8 magical beasts returned to their clans, they had discovered that it was indeed as newbies had described. Their clansman had not been harmed at all, only having been knocked out by the venomous gas he had sprayed. There was no threat to their lives whatsoever. All the clansmen who had been affected by the gas moved about energetically. Only a few weaker clansmen had not fully recovered, and their faces remained sheet-white. However, the forests around their tribes had been reduced to dust by newbies' venomous gas. Only a few thick, ancient trees stood where they were, having now shriveled and lost all signs of life. However, the 8 magical beasts completely ignored the destroyed vegetation around them. They were all overjoyed to see their clansmen completely fine. They all secretly thanked newbies for his mercy before immediately ordering their people to collect gold. In the end, they constructed a golden statue in the center of their tribes using a large quantity of gold. The statue obviously depicted newbies. He stood 300 meters tall and had been personally carved by the Class 8 magical beasts, making him seem lifelike. In the blink of an eye, Jian Chen had already stayed on Three Saint Island for half a month. He spent more than half of that time beside Xiao Bao, guiding him through the cultivation process, passing on knowledge about everything, including battle skills and so on. He basically taught Xiao Bao everything he knew. Xiao Bao was young, but he was a very sensible boy. He seemed to know that Jian Chen would be leaving soon, so he valued the time he spent with Jian Chen very much. He would take everything that Jian Chen told him to heart, diligently studying. He also worked very hard on his cultivation. Due to the vast amounts of resources available and because he did not need to comprehend the laws of the world for the lower layers of the chaotic body, Xiao Bao improved by leaps and bounds with every passing day. He had already reached the strength of a 5th heavenly layer Saint Ruler. The divisions of the innate chaotic body greatly differed from the divisions of the normal chaotic body. The innate chaotic body only had 4 major realms, which were minor achievement, partial achievement, major achievement, and great perfection. It was unlike the chaotic body Jian Chen possessed, which required his chaotic Niden to be shattered a total of 18 times, and his strength would only increase by several cultivation levels only when each shattering occurred. As a result, it was extremely evident whenever Xiao Bao's strength increased slightly. Jian Chen and the Heavenly Enchantress would have minor conversations from time to time as well. The topic of the conversations would always be about Xiao Bao, but his relationship with her had taken a slightly better turn as a result. Although the Heavenly Enchantress still behaved coldly toward Jian Chen, she no longer appeared unapproachable at the very least. The Heavenly Enchantress had consumed the 5th grade Violet Cloud Peach and Comprehension Tea leaves he had given her as well. He could clearly sense that she was even more powerful than before, but due to the fact that she followed a different path of cultivation, Jian Chen was unable to tell just what level she had reached unless they fought. Other than that, Xiao Qian, Xiao Yu, and Qin Qin were familiar to Jian Chen as well, so they obviously received his assistance too. He gifted 5th grade Violet Cloud Peaches and Comprehension Tea leaves to them, allowing their strength to greatly increase. Their increases of strength did not cause any 7-colored rainbow clouds, but the 3 of them, including Qin Qin, had all become Saint Kings. They also gained the ability to rip open space gates. Normally, it would have been impossible for Qin Qin to become a Saint King, but she had absorbed slightly more energy from the immortal peaches than Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu, which was why she had reached Saint King in the end. Soon after breaking through, Qin Qin bid farewell to Jian Chen and the Heavenly Enchantress. She had been thinking about her family and home, so she left the island. Xiao Qian and Xiao Yu used the excuse of visiting their junior's home to leave with her. In the end, only Jian Chen, the Heavenly Enchantress, and Shangguan Aojian were left on the mountain. The mountain immediately became even more desolate even though many people did not reside on it in the first place. The sun shone brightly and the seas were calm on this particular day. A golden streak of light shot over from the distant horizon, heading directly for Three Saint Island at an unbelievable speed. As a magical beast, the great newbies, naturally have a weaker soul than humans. Even as a beast of antiquity, there's no changing that fact, which is why I was utterly helpless against that demoness soul attacks, But my strength now is incomparable to the past. I am no longer that puny Class 7 magical beast. I'll definitely trample all over this demoness and pay her back for what happened in the past." Newbies flew through the sky as he evilly smiled. Back when I was only Class 7, that demoness was only a Saint Ruler as well. Now that I've reached Class 9, equivalent to the Saint Emperors on the Tianyuan continent, it's impossible for that demoness to increase her strength as quickly as me. She might even still be at the same level as before. Her zither music won't be able to pose any threat to me at all. I wonder what her face will look like when she witnesses my strength. She'll definitely be very shocked. Ha! Thinking up to there, Newbies could not help but laugh aloud. In his life, there had only been two people he had felt fear for. The first one was the old snake from the Beast God continent, while the other was obviously the heavenly enchantress. Back when he had visited the island for the first time with Jianchen, he had been scared away by the heavenly enchantress, not daring to set foot on the island again because the heavenly enchantress zither was just too terrifying. It made him feel like his body and soul had almost been taken by the music, leading to him forming an intense fear for the heavenly enchantress. But now, with his increase in strength, this fear had vanished. Chapter 1420. The heavenly enchantress strength. Newbies did not use a space gate, but he still flew very quickly. He fused with the surrounding space as he tore through the air while radiating a dazzling, golden light. He looked like a comet. He moved extremely quickly and silently toward the island. When Newbies arrived 100 kilometers away from the island, Jianchen and Heavenly Enchantress sensed his arrival. Both of them gazed into the distance. The Heavenly Enchantress' gaze was cold. She maintained a neutral expression with only some surprise flickering through her eyes. Jianchen faintly smiled instead. He glanced at Xiao Bao, who was cultivating in front of him, before standing up and making his way out. With Newbie's speed, he crossed 100 kilometers in a single moment. He appeared as a golden streak of light on the horizon very soon, approaching the island at an unbelievable speed. He soon descended to the island. At this moment, Jianchen took a step and traversed several hundred meters, appearing before Newbies. He examined him closely and said, "Your presence is quite stronger than before. You must have benefited quite a lot from your trip to the Beast God continent." Newbies sniggered and proudly said, "Of course. When I, the great Newbies, personally set out, there's nothing that's impossible. This trip to the Beast God continent has been extremely significant to me. I feel that my bloodline has become even purer after devouring that old snake's essence. Although there's no obvious mutation yet, I'm one step closer to the next mutation." As soon as he finished speaking, Newbies seemed to realize something. He immediately looked at Jianchen with a strange gaze and asked, "Jianchen, what's so important about Three Saint Island to cause you to stay so long on this tiny island? Has that demoness really caught your eye?" "Oh yeah, where is that demoness?" Newbies looked around and failed to find any traces of the heavenly enchantress. However, he jerked soon after and became filled with shock. He exclaimed, "What have I discovered? A kid who's not even 10 actually has the strength of a Saint Ruler. Is this real?" Before he could finish speaking, Newbies quickly flew toward the cave where Shangguan Aojian was cultivating as a blur. Although Shangguan Aojian's cave was several kilometers away, hidden by a winding path up the mountain, Newbies was still a Saint Emperor. There was nothing on the entire island that could be kept hidden from him. Unless someone was far more powerful than him, he would be able to sense them. Jianchen wanted to stop Newbies when he set off to where Shangguan Aojian was, but Jianchen hesitated. He thought about how Shangguan Aojian's identity could not remain hidden forever. In the end, he did not stop Newbies, only followed behind him. Newbies moved very quickly, arriving outside Shangguan Aojian's cave in the blink of an eye. Just when he wanted to enter, a purple figure blocked him in a flash, moving far faster than he did before. The heavenly enchantress in her purple dress and with her zither had suddenly appeared at the entrance of the cave, blocking Newbies' way. "Leave here immediately." The heavenly enchantress coldly ordered Newbies away with her back facing him. Her curvy figure seemed very slender, but as she stood there, it seemed like no one could get past her. At that moment, her body seemed to have become a wall that had locked out the entire world, separating the interior of the cave from the exterior. A gleam of light flashed through Newbie's eyes. Although he could sense that the heavenly enchantress' strength was slightly different than before, he could not see her exact strength. However, with his understanding, even if the heavenly enchantress had increased in strength, the increase would be very limited, not enough to threaten himself. As a result, he did not worry at all and loudly said, "Demoness, looks like your strength has increased by quite a bit from before. I, the great Newbies, have become slightly careless, which was why you managed to sneak before me. I may have feared you deeply in the past, but you're as weak as an ant to me now. If you're smart, move and don't block the way. I want to see that little guy inside." The heavenly enchantress' gaze immediately grew cold when she heard Newbies refer to her as demoness. A sliver of anger seemed to flicker through her eyes as she coldly responded without even looking back. "Three Saint Island does not welcome you. Leave immediately or—" Before she could finish what she was saying, Newbies interrupted her. He sniggered. "Or what? You're going to attack me mercilessly? I'll take all your attacks. I sure do want to see what you can do." Jianchen had also arrived by now. He stood in the distance as he watched. He did not go up to interfere and only looked at Newbies in sympathy. The heavenly enchantress had already ingested a 5th-grade violet cloud peach. Even Jianchen was unsure how powerful she had become, but he was certain that she was far more than what Newbies could handle. "Jianchen, haven't you held feelings for this demoness for quite some time now? Don't worry, I'll help you with them. I'll capture this demoness right now and get her to accompany you in bed," Newbies loudly informed Jianchen. He paid no attention to the faint killing intent that had appeared in the heavenly enchantress' eyes. What Newbies said near the end seemed to have crossed the heavenly enchantress' bottom line. Ding! Almost at the same time Newbies had finished speaking, the heavenly enchantress struck a string. There was only a single note, but it seemed like a thunderous explosion when Newbies heard it. His body and soul trembled. Newbies' face drastically changed. He stared at the heavenly enchantress as disbelief flooded his face. He was now a Saint Emperor. Even though his soul could not be compared to the souls of human Saint Emperors, it was far more powerful, without any doubt, than his soul when he was still at Class 7. Yet right now, he had discovered that he still found it very difficult to resist the soul attacks of the heavenly enchantress even with his strengthened soul. "Once I get you, I'd like to see how you play the zither." Newbies made up his mind. Extending a finger, a strand of golden thread shot out with lightning-like speed, weaving into a net that loomed over the heavenly enchantress. The heavenly enchantress' face was icy cold. Her eyes seemed to flicker with darkness, enough to cause people to shiver. With just a single hand, she strummed the strings of her zither. The music she created was extremely pleasant, but it also seemed to be as deep as the sound of war drums. The sound seemed to change. As she struck every note, visible sound waves spread into the surroundings. As soon as Newbies' net came into contact with the sound waves, it met a great resistance, unable to move any further after spreading out. It was even pushed back by the sound waves. Newbies was thrown into absolute shock by that. The current situation was nowhere near the outcome he had expected. He had never thought that he would be at a disadvantage against the heavenly enchantress. However, before Newbies could react, the heavenly enchantress playing posture changed. She played 7 strings simultaneously, immediately producing 7 pleasant but deep sounds. A sound wave formed with every string, kicking up ripples in the surrounding space. When Newbies heard the 7 notes, he violently jerked and immediately paled. The 7 notes seemed to explode in his head like thunder. When the 4th note exploded, he could not help but stagger back uncontrollably. The 5th note made Newbies grunt. He became injured and had already staggered several dozen meters back. The 6th note caused a stream of blood to flow from the corner of Newbies' lips and caused him to stagger to several hundred meters away. The 7th note caused Newbies to throw up blood. His body trembled as his eyesight became blurry. He found it rather difficult to stay standing. The heavenly enchantress' gaze remained icy cold. Newbies had crossed her bottom line, so she clearly did not plan on letting him go so easily. She had already placed a finger on an eighth string and was about to strum it. Jian Chen's face changed. He knew that the heavenly enchantress was very powerful, but he had never expected her strength to be so great. Newbies suffered a complete defeat with his strength as a Saint Emperor, which took him by complete surprise. Seeing how the heavenly enchantress still did not plan on letting Newbies go, he immediately cried out, "Stop, don't harm Newbies anymore." Jian Chen arrived before Newbies in a flash and supported him when he almost fell. Chapter 1421. Visiting the Beast God Hall. Since he's humiliated me, he needs to pay the price. I won't harm his life, but I definitely can't let him off so easily, the heavenly enchantress coldly replied. Her white hand struck her zither, and the zither immediately shot toward Jian Chen with a powerful pulse of energy. As the zither shot out, it smashed through space, forming a pitch-black crack along its trajectory, which hung there like a black line. The strike had actually reached the level of Saint Emperors and was far more powerful than an attack from a regular Saint Emperor. Even though the heavenly enchantress was best at using the music of the zither to fend off her opponents, her strength did not lie solely with the musical instrument. Even without her zither, she still possessed an extremely terrifying level of strength. Jian Chen was stern. He dared not receive the heavenly enchantress attack carelessly. Even though he now possessed the strength to fight receival experts, he needed to use the azulate swords to do that. Without the swords, his strength would suffer. However, Jian Chen clearly did no need to use his swords against the zither that flew toward him. A gleam of light flickered through Jian Chen's eyes and chaotic force circulated within him. At the same time, a layer of dazzling white light condensed from the surroundings, enveloping him completely. Jian Chen was going to use the protection of the light from the way of the sword to handle an attack from the heavenly enchantress to avoid using the two swords. When Jian Chen had completed his preparations, the zither arrived with tremendous energy. Jian Chen struck out with his right palm, which collided with the zither. Bang! The two collided and immediately erupted with a heavy sound. The two of them possessed great control over their power, so they prevented energy from shooting out and destroying the mountain, but the ground still cracked as the entire mountain shook gently. The toughness of the heavenly enchantress zither was just shocking. Jian Chen felt like his hand had struck extremely tough steel. The great force numbed his entire right hand and also made him retreat uncontrollably. The zither came to a halt, having been stopped by Jian Chen. However, it did not return to the heavenly enchantress and instead remained in the air. At this moment, Jian Chen caught the smell of a certain fragrance. The heavenly enchantress had appeared before Newbies with a purple flash, striking his chest with a gentle palm. Her true intentions were only to teach Newbies a lesson. She had attacked Jian Chen with her zither only to keep him busy. Newbies' soul had still yet to recover from the zither music. He stood there in a daze. His mind was still in a mess. As a result, he did not put up any defenses to protect himself from the heavenly enchantress' palm strike. Being struck, his entire body was thrown far away, only falling out of the air several hundred meters away. He then rolled off a cliff, suffering a horrible outcome. Jian Chen gently sighed as he watched Newbies roll down the mountain. He was filled with a sense of helplessness. Newbies could offend anyone he wanted except her, yet he just had to choose the heavenly enchantress, whose strength Jian Chen did not know, to offend. Newbies was just making trouble for himself. Jian Chen did not go and help Newbies. He allowed him to roll down the mountain, crashing into rocks and rolling through bushes. With his body as a Class 9 magical beast, the collisions would not be able to harm him at all. It would just reduce him to a complete mess and hurt his pride as a Saint Emperor. However, Jian Chen became shocked by the strength that the heavenly enchantress had displayed. He believed that this was not all she had. The heavenly enchantress left, carrying her zither with a sunken face and leaving Jian Chen standing where he was. Newbies returned to his senses at the bottom of the mountain. He only suffered scratches, but his confidence had been shattered. He stood there in dejection as fear flooded the depths of his eyes. He had even made up his mind about death as he gazed at the line of flat bushes where he rolled down the mountain. She's a demoness I say, a terrifying demoness. Newbies no longer stayed any longer on the island. As soon as he had returned to his senses, he immediately fled. At the same time, he said to Jianchen through a communication technique, "Brother, I'll be leaving first. I'll be waiting for you 10,000 kilometers away." Jianchen shook his head with a helpless smile as he watched newbies desperately flee. He returned to the cave to watch over Xiaobao. Jianchen stayed a few more days on the island. After Xiaobao had learned everything Jianchen could pass on to him, Jianchen understood it was time for him to leave. The next day, Jianchen bid farewell to Xiaobao and the heavenly enchantress. He left behind another great pile of heavenly resources for Xiaobao's cultivation needs before leaving the island. He flew toward the vast sea. Jianchen had left 10 fifth-grade violet cloud peaches for the two of them and the same number of comprehension tea leaves. The amount was enough to last them 500 years. "Daddy, you have to come visit me soon. I'll be waiting for you here," Xiaobao demanded as he waved at Jianchen from the mountain. He did not receive a response from his father. Jianchen had already vanished into the horizon. The heavenly enchantress gazed in the direction Jianchen had disappeared in a daze. Her emotions were mixed as she thought about something. 10,000 kilometers away, Jianchen reunited with newbies. Although it had been several days already, newbies still seemed rather dispirited, clearly still hung up on the shock he had received a few days ago. "Jianchen, the great newbies, swear that I am never returning to Three Saint Island again. I never want to see that demoness ever again." Newbies fumed and made a promise as soon as he saw Jianchen. Newbies would never forget everything that had happened a few days ago, now forever etched in his head. When he had returned from the beast god continent earlier, he had been teeming with pride and confidence, yet he had suffered horribly. Jianchen became stunned by what he heard before breaking into laughter. "I want to pay a visit to the beast god continent. Do you want to come along?" Newbies was surprised. His interest was immediately piqued as he responded, "The beast god continent? For the beast god hall? You want the young winged tiger god to enter the beast god hall for the legacy?" "Yes," Jianchen replied firmly as if it was nothing. I've never seen the beast god hall before, so I might as well go with you this time. Even if we get surrounded by the 3 Class 9 magical beasts when the time comes, there's no need for me to fear," Newbies chuckled. It would obviously be better the sooner Jianchen went to the beast god hall, so he clearly did not fly there leisurely while enjoying the scenery like what Newbies had done before. He got Newbies to create a space gate that connected to the center of the beast god continent. Then the two of them vanished through it. Chapter 1422, Legacy of the Beast God, 1. The Beast God Hall stood in the very center of the Beast God continent. A majestic hall hung 10,000 meters in the air, radiating with a brilliant glow. The structure was extremely large, stretching 10,000 meters in length, width, and height. It seemed like a small city. The divine hall was named the Beast God Hall. It possessed an irreplaceable position on the Beast God continent because it had been created in the ancient times by the winged tiger god using the essence of the earth. It had become a holy land for all the magical beasts on the Beast God continent as well as the place where the experts of the continent cultivated. The divine hall possessed 99 floors. Each floor was 100 meters tall with a huge area. Aside from the 99th floor, where no one has ever set foot in, the other floors were occupied by the 98 strongest people of the continent. The top 3 floors were where the 3 Class 9 experts of the continent cultivated. However, after the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints, the Beast God continent had suffered heavy losses. Many of the 99 floors had become empty, over 2/3 of all the floors. A person sat on the 96th, 97th, and 98th floors of the structure. They were the 3 Saint Emperors of the Beast God continent, the Tiger Emperor, Pring Emperor, and Kaiser. However, the 3 of them were all sickly pale. Their faces were haggard, bearing weakness. The 3 of them had been severely injured in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. Without the help of a radiant Saint Master, it was impossible for them to recover in such a short amount of time even as Class 9 magical beasts. But at this very moment, the 3 experts suddenly opened their eyes simultaneously. They stared in the same direction. Their gazes seemed to be able to pierce through the obstructions of the divine hall and clearly see the world outside. At the same time, the calm space 100 kilometers from the divine hall suddenly began to ripple. A space gate rapidly formed and Newbies and Jianchen emerged together, by each other's sides. The two of them hovered 10,000 meters in the air, allowing them to see far. Even though the continent was riddled with mountains, they could still see the grand divine hall in the distance 100 kilometers away. Is this the beast god hall? Although I'm a magical beast, this is the first time I've seen the divine hall that holds a supreme status in the hearts of all magical beasts. Newbies mumbled as he stared at the divine hall in the distance. He had come to the continent before, but since he feared the three Saint Emperors, he had chosen to not set foot here. Jianchen also examined the divine hall with his eyes. Each side of the beast god hall was the same length, like a cube. It was clearly different from all the other divine halls he had come across before. However, Jianchen could clearly sense the pulse of an extremely terrifying energy within the divine hall despite the special exterior. He felt shocked by how powerful it was. This beast god hall is definitely much more powerful than the sea goddess divine hall, Jianchen thought. At that moment, he could not help but compare the divine hall to the supreme divine hall in Mercenary City. The beast god hall had been constructed by one of the four ancient champions, the winged tiger god, while the supreme divine hall in Mercenary City had been left behind by the greatest human expert, Mo Tianyun. The two divine halls both held an extraordinary significance to their respective continents. They were the greatest creations of the magical beasts and humans. I may have gone to the divine hall left behind by Senior Mo Tianyun in the past, but I was too weak back then. Although I could sense how extraordinary he divine hall was, I was unable to see the exact details of the divine hall clearly, Jianchen thought. He could not help but imagine the floating divine hall he had met Tianjin in. Jianchen and Newbies flew toward the beast god hall together, but before they could approach the structure, three figures simultaneously flew out of it. They glanced over the two of them. The three of them were the greatest experts on the beast god continent. Aside from the Saint Emperor of the Peng clan, Songqiong, who faintly smiled, Kaiser and Lankiros both revealed extremely sunken faces. They were quite a horrifying sight. If Jianchen had been the same as before, he would have been smashed to a pulp just because he was a human, regardless of his disagreements with the two Saint Emperors. However, strength had given Jianchen the power to look down on the world. Even though they had once fallen out with Jianchen, Kaiser and Lankiros could say nothing and only fume as they watched Jianchen swagger toward the divine hall. They could not afford to take him on as an opponent. So it's Sovereign Jianchen. I represent the beast god continent when I welcome Sovereign Jianchen. If there is anything we can assist you with, please tell us. Songqiong clasped his hands at Jianchen with a smile. He was neither arrogant nor humble. He then glanced at Kaiser and Lankiros and seemed to take pleasure in their suffering. Jianchen possessed quite a good impression of the Peng Emperor and even felt some admiration for him, because he was the only Saint Emperor who had not become involved with Xiao Bai's matters. He had not taken part in making things difficult for Jianchen during the fight for the Saint's fruit in the Death Nest and was the only one who had put his life on the line and battled to the end when they had fended off the foreign world. Jianchen and Songqiong greeted each other amicably. Afterward, Jianchen turned his eyes to Kaiser and Lankiros and faintly smiled. Looking at your reaction, the two of you don't seem to welcome me very much. The two of them clenched their jaws as they stood there with dark faces. Even though they were utterly furious because of Jianchen's arrival and did not welcome him at all, they dared not to say anything. It was even more impossible for them to yield to Jianchen because they were the supreme experts of their races. They possessed their pride. Newbies immediately sneered when he saw them. He took a step forward and said, "Sirs, do you really not welcome the two of us? According to the rules of the beast god continent, do you want to chase us away?" As he said that, a tremendous presence radiated from Newbies. He had exposed his 9th-class strength. The three magical beasts all revealed different expressions and finally turned their gazes away from Jianchen to Newbies. They had placed all their attention on Jianchen before and unintentionally ignored Newbies' existence. Only now did they discover in shock that Newbies was also a Class 9 magical beast. Kaiser and Lankrios looked at each other. They could see the helplessness and the grievances within each other's eyes. They had both trampled over others in the past, but this had never happened to them before. Their greatest enemy had come to their lair, yet they dared not to say a single word, afraid of creating a disaster. There naturally is nothing that can obstruct your way, but you cannot enter the Beast God Hall, Lankrios said reluctantly. His complexion was extremely unnatural. Chapter 1423, Legacy of the Beast God, 2. The Beast God Hall was left behind by the Winged Tiger God in ancient times. There are a total of 99 floors, and the 99th floor can only be entered by a Winged Tiger God. It's said that the legacy of the ancient Winged Tiger God is there, but after all these years, no one has ever set foot there, which is why the 99th floor has always been sealed off. The only way there is through the 98th floor. Sangqiong explained from one side. Kaiser's face darkened even more. The gaze he shot toward the Pring Emperor hid deep killing intent. He obviously knew why Jianchen had come to the Beast God Hall. He had killed the young Winged Tiger God's father in the past, so he had already become a permanent enemy of the Winged Tiger God. If he ended up receiving the legacy, Kaiser would end up dead for sure. This was because the Winged Tiger God would definitely take revenge on him for killing his father. I thank Senior for the explanation. Jianchen clasped his hands at Sangqiong before making his way to the Divine Hall. Stop. As a human, you cannot set foot in the Supreme Beast God Hall. Otherwise, you would be committing blasphemy against the entire continent. You would be treading over the dignity of the entire continent, Lankrios said with a horrible complexion. Come at me if you want to stop me, Jianchen coldly replied. He walked toward the Beast God Hall with firm strides. He had no intention of stopping. Newbies followed beside him excitedly. Kaiser and Lankrios watched Jianchen rapidly move further away as they gritted their teeth. In the end, they could only helplessly watch as Jianchen entered the 98th floor of the Beast God continent. They no longer possessed enough strength to stop Jianchen now. Sangqiong gazed at Kaiser and Lankrios before gently sighing inside. He then followed Jianchen and Newbies into the 98th floor of the Beast God Hall. Kaiser and Lankrios were left standing where they were with dark expressions. Their eyes flickered uneasily, and they did not follow Jianchen into the Divine Hall. The two of us are nowhere near Jianchen's opponent even if we work together. Jianchen has not claimed our life, but there's still the young Winged Tiger God. As long as Jianchen is present, we can't do anything to it. And once it reaches the 9th class through the legacy of the Beast God, we won't be its opponent even if we work together, Lankrios said through a communication technique. He felt very heavy-hearted. Kaiser silently pondered for a while before responding. We've had some disagreements with Jianchen in the past, but they haven't reached the point where we can't reconcile with Jianchen. At the same time, we've contributed in the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints, which is why Jianchen has not killed us. However, the Winged Tiger God is different. After all, its father was technically killed by us, so the Winged Tiger God's enmity for us has already reached a point of no return. It's just a pity that we still can't control the Beast God Hall, or dealing with Jianchen would have been easy. We can only leave the Beast God continent now. The world is only so big. An Origin Realm expert will not find it difficult to find us, so where can we run to? Lankrios asked. We can conceal our tracks, where even Jianchen would need some time to find us. And I believe, soon, the next wave of attacks from the world of Forsaken Saints will arrive. Jianchen may be very powerful, but he's definitely not the opponent of the sovereigns from the world of Forsaken Saints. Who knows if he and the Winged Tiger God can survive the next battle? As long as they die, there's no need for us to remain in fear. However, we need to find a place to hide ourselves until then. The best place right now would be to hide in the most dangerous place of the Tianyuan continent, the Death Nest. Kaiser gnashed his teeth as grievances filled his eyes. He had never ever thought that a day like this would come in the past, where he would be forced to leave the Beast God continent and the region he ruled over. We should not tarry. Let's leave right now. Kaiser and Lankrios concealed their presences and carefully left. They were afraid Jianchen would detect their departure. However, what they did not know was that as soon as they had begun to move, Jianchen suddenly turned his head in their direction while the beast god hauled. He had already discovered their intentions. Jianchen, those Class 9 magical beasts owe a blood debt to that little tiger of yours. Are you just going to let them leave? Newbies asked Jianchen, clearing sensing their departure as well. Xiao Bai's the winged tiger god after all. There's no need for us to interfere with avenging his father. Once Xiao Bai truly matures, he'll need to take revenge personally and kill his enemies, Jianchen said in a deep voice. He was not afraid of Kaiser and Lanky Rose disappearing. This world was not particularly vast to Origin Realm experts. Since they've already left, that would be equivalent to abandoning their positions in the Beast God Hall. The 96th and 98th floors are now without owners. Jianchen, there's still some wealth that they've left behind. It all belongs to you now, Song Qiong said. He was amazed. Back then, Kaiser and Lankyros had led the experts of the continent to attack the Tianyuan continent. Jianchen was forced to leave his home and seek refuge in the Sea Realm in the end. Yet now, Jianchen had forced Kaiser and Lankyros into abandoning their positions on the Beast God continent to flee. This really was karma. There's no hurry. Let's get Xiao Bai to enter the 99th floor for the legacy first. We can search through the items they've left behind afterward, Jianchen said as he leisurely made his way through the 98th floor. He was amazed because the energy of the world on that floor was extremely dense. It seemed to be 100 times denser than the energy outside, even denser than the miniature worlds of the Protector clans. No wonder the Beast God continent had 3 Saint Emperors while the humans only had 1, who had only managed to break through by coming up with a cultivation path himself. Looks like all the mysteries are explained here. If you cultivate for long periods of time in the Beast God Hall, the rate at which you can cultivate is incomparable to the outside world, Jianchen thought. Song Qiong lead the way for Jianchen as they made their way to the entrance of the 99th floor. Although Song Qiong had always stayed on the 97th floor, he had a rough understanding of the layout of every floor, which was why he was familiar with the 98th floor. Jianchen passed through many corridors under Song Qiong's lead before finally arriving at the entrance to the top floor. The entrance was not a flight of stairs, but an extremely complicated teleportation formation. Chapter 1424. Legacy of the Beast God. 3. The teleportation formation was extremely large. It was 50 meters wide and had been carved into the ground. It seemed extremely mysterious. Even though it had not been activated, it seemed like it was constantly spinning. If someone placed their attention on it, they would feel a sudden force from the formation tug at their soul, as if they were about to be sucked into the formation. Jianchen examined the formation for some time and gradually became stern. He had seen teleportation formations before and had even obtained one from the Divine Hall of the Underworld sect. However, all the teleportation formations he had seen in the past were not as mysterious as the one in the Beast God Hall. Even Jianchen felt dizzy if he stared at the formation for too long. He felt extremely shocked by this fact. After all, his soul was far more powerful than it had ever been in the past, yet it was not strong enough to discover the mysteries of the teleportation formation. This could only mean that the quality of the teleportation formation was unbelievable. Looks like this is the teleportation formation leading to the 99th floor. I've only learned about the existence of this formation from some ancient records. This is my first time seeing it as well. Song Qiong stared at the formation before him in interest, before sighing emotionally. The records say that there is a supreme killing formation hidden within the teleportation formation, which will kill any person who tries to touch or destroy it, no matter how powerful they are. Even if they've reached the apex in this world, they won't be able to withstand a single attack from the formation, dying in an instant. The killing formation will activate as soon as the teleportation formation is activated. Only the winged tiger god can survive the killing formation, Song Qiong continued. The gaze he used to look at the formation with contained some surprise and doubt. What if an Origin Realm expert steps into it? Jianchen asked. Song Qiong frowned slightly with that. After a moment of thought, he said, The records say that even those who have attained the very apex of the world will be killed in a single strike. I wonder if it's referring to Saint Emperor or the Origin Realm. If it includes the Origin Realm, it probably has the terrifying power to kill Origin Realm experts. Newbies laughed in uncertainty when he heard that. He said, "Who passed down this information in the ancient records?" He's actually described this formation as being so powerful that it can even kill Origin Realm sovereigns. "Of course it's the ancient winged tiger god," responded Songqiong. Newbies was stunned by the answer and immediately became much sterner. This teleportation formation can only be activated by the bloodline of the winged tiger god. "Jianchen, please let out the winged tiger god." "It can only rely on itself for what will happen next. No one can help it," said Songqiong. He was the only Saint Emperor who had protected Shao Bai among the three from the continent. The white tiger had awakened from cultivation several days ago and had learned from Jianchen that he was taking him to the Beast God Hall for the legacy of the Beast God. As a result, the tiger had spent the past few days waiting for Jianchen to bring him news in the artifact space. Jianchen immediately contacted the artifact spirit in order to let out Shao Bai. Jianchen had gotten him to stay within the artifact space because he wanted to prevent any schemes that Kaiser may have planned in the Beast God Hall from occurring. With a flash of golden light, the white tiger appeared within the Beast God Hall. It could control its size as it wished, so it was only a meter-long tiger right now. It was covered with snow-white fur that let out a hazy, white glow. Powerful pulses of energy could be clearly sensed from every strand of its fur, as if any single hair on its body could easily be used as a weapon. Its two wings were tightly furled on its back. They were covered with a simple patterning, appearing extremely ordinary yet also seemingly hiding deep mysteries of the world within them. This time, Rum Guinness, who had remained in seclusion for many years in the artifact space, emerged as well. Over the past few years, her strength had undergone an overwhelming change as well. She had only been a Class 7 magical beast in the past, but she had reached the 8th class now and was at the 7th heavenly layer. Rum Guinness' strength could increase so much in such short time obviously because of the comprehension tea and a violet cloud peach. Songqiong obviously recognized the mother of the winged tiger god. He nodded his head at her amicably before turning his attention away from her. His gaze became fixated on the winged tiger god. "We magical beasts can assume a human form as soon as we reach the 7th class. Some unique species don't even need to reach the 7th class to assume a human form. I never thought that the winged tiger god would still be in a beast form despite reaching the 8th class now. The records say that the ancient winged tiger god always appeared before its people in its beast form. Does that mean that the winged tiger god can never assume a human form?" Songqiong murmured to himself. A sliver of doubt and confusion appeared in his eyes. The white tiger gazed at the teleportation formation ahead before looking at Jianchen and Rum Guinness. Its gaze was filled with reliance and closeness. It did not enter the teleportation formation immediately. Jianchen rubbed the white tiger's furry head out of habit, and his gaze became gentle. He said softly, "Shao Bai, this is a fortuitous encounter that belongs to you. It will all be up to you, so get through the upcoming journey. We cannot give you any support at all. Go and accept the legacy that belongs to you. You will have to take revenge for the death of your father yourself. Child, your father is looking over you from heaven. You must not disappoint your father. You have to obtain the legacy of the great beast god." Rum Guinness' eyes were brimming with tears as she emotionally added encouragement. The white tiger's gaze immediately became determined when it saw the tears pool in its mother's eyes. It let out a deep growl, turned around, and walked toward the teleportation formation. The formation had been activated by a drop of the white tiger's blood. It immediately began to shine with a dazzling white light, enveloping the white tiger. At the same time, the killing formation hidden within it appeared. It separated the space of the formation from the outside world, and a terrifying glow of death descended. The glow enveloped the entire space of the formation. Jianchen's face abruptly changed when the glow of death appeared. The light made him feel like the world was ending. At that moment, he even felt that if the light made it outside, It was enough to annihilate the entire world or cleave the entire universe into two. It seemed like the entire world and universe could not withstand a single attack from the light. Chapter 1425. Legacy of the Beast God, 4. At that moment, Jianchen could not help but recall the Spirit King. If he compared the Spirit King to the glow of death, the outcome would have shocked Jianchen because the Spirit King would not have been able to endure it at all. He would have been completely annihilated by the light in the end. The war god Ergens once said that the winged tiger god had surpassed the limitations of a lifespan and is able to live as long as the world exists. That's a representation of godhood. Is he at godhood? Jianchen asked himself. He was greatly astounded by the terrifying light. He finally believed that the ancient records did not exaggerate anything at all. As soon as something that was not another winged tiger god had activated the formation, they would have been annihilated, even if they had reached the apex of the world in this world. This apex was not referring to Peak Saint Emperor but the origin realm. Songqiong and newbies also revealed drastically different expressions as well. They could obviously sense how terrifying the killing formation was. Just tiniest bit of presence that had managed to leak out made them shiver inside. If they had to take the full brunt of the formation, they could no longer imagine the final outcome. Rum Guinness suffered even more than them. She stumbled back several dozen steps and became utterly pale. Shock and fear filled her face. The way of slaughter. This winged tiger god has actually comprehended the way of slaughter to such a profound level. He's not of this world. Just who is he? Does he come from? At the same time, the sword spirits softly murmured to themselves as well. They were very stern. The terrifying glow of death descended from the sky and only swept through the area enclosed by the formation. It seemed like it was destroying everything in the formation, but when it landed on the white tiger, its body harness passed through. In the end, the glow of death completely vanished after it reached the edge of the formation. At the same time, the teleportation formation had completely charged up. It sent the white tiger away. A few cracks followed as the huge teleportation formation on the ground shattered. The white tiger discovered that it had actually arrived in a sea of stars after leaving the 98th floor of the Beast God Hall. The stars covered the area as far as it could see, countless galaxies shined down. Huge meteors would swoop by from time to time at unbelievable speeds in the vast space, either disappearing into the distance or colliding into huge planets in the end. Slaughter rules over life. It reigns supreme above all life forms and moves through the fates of all life. At this moment, a tremendous voice rang through the void, reverberating in the white tiger's ears like a huge bell. To comprehend the great way of slaughter, you must first comprehend the source of life, which is known by the extreme yin that gives birth to yang and the extreme yang that gives birth to yin. The opposite is obtained when approaching the extremities. The way of slaughter is death while the origins of life is birth. If death and life become one, there will definitely be conflict. Only by balancing the two can you attain the true way. Suddenly, the landscape before the white tiger changed. A huge planet had appeared. It was covered with wastelands but lingered in a deathly silence. There were no signs of life at all. There, the white tiger seemed to experience the endless flow of time, but it felt like the blink of an eye at the same time. After a period of time that even the white tiger did not know how long had passed, a few interesting phenomena gradually appeared on the huge planet after alternating between yin and yang. These phenomena all originated from the rocks or natural climate of the planet, all forming odd life forms in the end. Some were formed from rock, others were formed from rain, and there were even some formed from the wind. From then on, the dead planet had gained its first forms of life. After another length of time that the white tiger could not fathom, vegetation gradually appeared on the planet. After countless revolutions around the sun, the vegetation attained self-awareness, becoming another odd form of life. After countless years, the life forms of rock, vegetation, rain, and wind all evolved differently. They formed various powerful races, and the planet brimmed with life. Among these races, the white tiger had discovered the beasts that it was extremely familiar with. During that period of time, The life of the planet had reached utmost prosperity. However, a cataclysm descended at this very moment. A terrifying rain of fire descended from the sky, punching countless holes into the planet. The entire planet was devastated. Mountains and earth cracked, huge tidal waves were kicked up, and lava shot into the air, leading to the extinction of all life. In the blink of an eye, the planet teeming with life had fallen back into silence. There were no signs of life. The planet began to settle down, and after countless more years, it gave birth to another wave of life. Gradually, vegetation reappeared, and the planet slowly made its way back to its former glory. When the planet had become prosperous once more, a huge meteorite fell from the sky, smashing into the earth. It immediately caused the planet to fall apart. The powerful force had wiped out all life. The huge planet had been reduced to several smaller planets now, which floated silently in the vastness of space. But, after even more time, new waves of life appeared on the smaller planets, but they were all met with extinction in the end. Some of the extinction events were caused by objects from outer space while others were caused by the life forms themselves. It seemed like an endless cycle, a story. The white tiger watched this silently as confusion filled its eyes. However, time seemed to move extremely quickly in outer space. In the blink of an eye, countless more years had passed, and this occurred time and time again. Life and death replaced each other. The initial confusion in the white tiger's eyes finally vanished after countless years, and they began to brighten up. Through the light, it seemed to have understood and comprehended something. The end of life is death, while death is the birth of life. Once life reaches its peak, approaching its extremity, the opposite will occur. At the same time, once death reaches its extremity, there are chances that life will appear as well. Life and death are like yin and yang. They must coexist harmoniously and cannot turn on one another. The white tiger had understood that truth. At that moment, it sensed its soul rapidly grow as it underwent a qualitative change. To understand life and death is to comprehend the true essence of life and death and to obtain its source. The great voice boomed once more, causing the entire universe to tremble. The white tiger felt the world spin, and when it woke up once again, it discovered itself on a planet teeming with life. It had become a stalk of medicinal herbs growing in a forest. He was eventually harvested by a herbalist and was used to make a bowl of medicinal soup to save someone from death's door. His life had ended to save another. After that, the white tiger became a human, a bird, a beast, and all the various plants in the forests and mountains. He experienced life and death time and time again as he comprehended the true essence of life and death in order to obtain its source. With every life and every death, it felt like a cycle. Every life and death he experienced seemed like a cumulative deposit of knowledge. Gradually, he understood more and his understanding of life and death deepened. Finally, after countless lives and deaths, after countless cycles, he understood the true essence of life and death and obtained its source. Chapter 1426. Sacred Feathered Tiger Emperors. His soul rapidly grew once more, undergoing a drastic metamorphosis. 2 specks of light had appeared in his soul as it strengthened. These were seeds, the sources of life and death he had obtained after comprehending their true essence. One represented death, the other represented life. The illusion ended. The planet beneath the white tiger vanished and the cosmos shattered. When he saw the landscape around him, he discovered that he had returned to the Beast God Hall. This floor was extremely different from the 98th floor. A statue of a white tiger with 2 wings stood in the center of the room. Its wings were completely unfurled. They seemed to be able to blot out the sky and rip through worlds. 100-meter-tall platform stood at the end of the floor. The platform only possessed a single throne. There was nothing else on the floor aside from the statue, platform, and throne. The second Sacred Feathered Tiger Emperor, you have finally come. I have waited for this day for a very long time. At this moment, a voice filled with vigor rang out. Beside the white tiger, a man in white clothes hovered a meter from the ground. He shone with a gentle, white light, obscuring his appearance. The white tiger let out a deep growl as he observed the man in interest. However, he sensed an extremely close presence radiating from the man. Correct, I am that winged tiger god that appeared in ancient times. However, the winged tiger god is only a name given to us by others. Our true identities are sacred feathered tiger emperors, also known as white tiger emperors. Sacred feathered tiger emperors are given birth to by the world. Our lives are bestowed to us by the world, but unlike natural spirits, we are born from the various organisms in the world. Sacred feathered tiger emperors are true rulers. We possess the greatest bloodlines in the world, and it's rare for even a single one to appear in 10 million years. We possess potential that has been bestowed on us by the world, directly comparable to the ancestral dragons. We are existences that can become grand exalts. I was the first sacred feathered tiger emperor to be born in the past 8 million years. My home is not here but an extremely distant place. I love my home very much, but I had to leave my beloved home in the end. Back when I had come to this world for the first time, my soul fused with the world and resonated with it during one of my comprehensions. I witnessed the source of the world for the first time, which forecasted that a second sacred feathered tiger emperor would be born here within 1 million years. I left my legacy here to provide assistance to the future clansmen. The sacred feathered tiger emperor is unquestionably the emperor of white tigers. It's rare for them to appear within even 10 million years, yet a second one was going to appear in another million year. It has disproven the past, representing the descent of an unprecedented age of prosperity. The man in white clothes slowly made his way to the white tiger before gently rubbing his head. He continued, "This is a clone that I left behind with a fragment of my soul. It has existed since ancient times, so it cannot last much longer and will disperse soon. You will properly comprehend the way of slaughter here, second sacred feathered tiger emperor. Only when you have truly mastered the basics can you leave. We will meet again." The white tiger looked at the man and produced a deep roar. Determination filled its eyes. This world has already been sealed, preventing anyone from reaching the origin realm. However, it cannot seal natural spirits of the world, nor can it seal the powerful bloodline of sacred feathered tiger emperors, so nothing can obstruct you from reaching the origin realm. Once you become powerful enough, go to the higher world with your companions. You can learn about that place from your friend. Grow well, second sacred feathered tiger emperor. We may possess a powerful bloodline that directly rivals the ancestral dragons, giving us the possibility to become great exalts, but we have been born in a prosperous age. Powerful experts will definitely stand in great numbers in the future, so we must stand hand in hand and kill our way back to our home together. I am about to disperse. Proceed to the throne and accept the legacy." As he uttered the final sentence, the man turned into countless specks of light and dispersed. In the blink of an eye, the 99th floor of the Beast God Hall fell silent. The white tiger stared in the direction the man had stood in a daze. Only after quite a while did he finally turn his eyes to the throne up ahead. He then began to slowly make his way over. As soon as he leaped onto the throne, the entire Beast God Hall violently trembled. At that moment, the terrifying energy hidden within the divine hall began to move about violently. It gathered from all directions, surging toward the mysterious 99th floor. The white tiger's body violently jerked before he closed his eyes and collapsed on the throne. He entered a deep state of cultivation. All the energy that had gathered on the floor poured into the throne. The brutal, terrifying energy, filled with the presence of death, became gentle after it was funneled through the throne. It allowed the white tiger's strength to grow at an unbelievable rate. At the same time, the white tiger's consciousness had drifted off into another world. There, he began to comprehend the way of slaughter left behind by the other winged tiger god. In his soul, the two specks of light, which represented the sources of life and death, flickered. They gradually swelled as the white tiger comprehended the way of slaughter. The movements of the divine hall alerted all the magical beasts cultivating there. The energy within the divine hall wildly churned, forming a terrifying pressure. Even the Class 8 magical beasts found it difficult to endure, and some of the ones still injured from the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints vomited blood. Their wounds deepened. What's happening? Why is there such a terrifying pressure in the Beast God Hall? The energy in the Divine Hall is unstable. Something's happened. Something abnormal has happened to the Divine Hall. Oh no, the pressure is rapidly strengthening. At this rate, we'll be injured by the pressure sooner or later. We need to leave immediately. At that moment, all the powerful magical beasts cultivating in the Beast God Hall revealed drastically different expressions. They flew out of the hall, shocked and confused. They hovered in the sky outside as they stared at the huge Divine Hall. Everyone, please do not panic. The great Beast God has returned and has entered the mysterious 99th floor for its legacy. The abnormality of the Divine Hall is due to his return. An ancient but energetic voice boomed from the sky. Song Qiong, Jian Chen, Rum Guinness, and newbies had all left the 98th floor as well. They currently hovered outside and looked down on everyone. Chapter 1427. Done for the Class 8 magical beasts that had emerged from the Divine Hall all looked up when they heard a voice. When they gazed at Song Qiong, their eyes were filled with respect. This was the respect directed at a Class 9 expert. However, when they heard that the great winged tiger god had entered the 99th floor of the Beast God Hall to accept his legacy, their emotions leaked onto their faces. The winged tiger god was the god of the magical beasts. He had left behind a permanent influence in ancient times. However, this influence had weakened with the passage of time, which was why very few magical beasts still treated the winged tiger god as a god. Two of their rulers had even become interested in replacing the winged tiger god. However, the world currently faced the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints. They had all personally witnessed the power of the foreign world. The foreign world was impossible to stop without Origin Realm experts. The war god of the 100 races had already returned, the humans had Jian Chen, and the sea realm had the sea goddess. 3 of the 4 great races in this world possessed Origin Realm experts. Only the magical beasts were lacking an expert. The magical beasts, which were originally stronger than the 100 races and humans, became the weakest race in a single stroke. As a result, all the magical beasts were extraordinarily moved by the return of the winged tiger god in their time of need. A part of them did not become emotional because the winged tiger god was the ancient beast god, but because its existence allowed them to maintain their former position among the 4 races. Very few people still worshipped the winged tiger god as a god. Song Qiong's voice rang out once more. Today, I will be announcing a significant matter. 2 of the 3 rulers of our beast god continent, Kaiser and the Tiger Emperor, have attempted to harm the great beast god in the past and have now fled because of their crimes. They have left the Beast God Hall. From today on, they are no longer a part of us. I declare that the Tiger Emperor Lankiros and Kaiser are now wanted people. Once their tracks have been found, you must report them. What Song Qiong said immediately caused quite a large commotion. The Beast God continent had been split into 3 territories. Kaiser, the Tiger Emperor, and Song Qiong all governed one of the territories, as they were the most powerful existences on the continent. Yet now, Song Qiong had actually issued a warrant for the arrest of the 2 other rulers, which immediately shocked everyone. However, no one dared to voice any objections. Right now, the disappearance of the 2 rulers had already explained some matters. At the same time, the winged tiger god had already begun to accept its legacy. They all understood that their loyalty no longer lay with the 3 rulers from before but with the great beast god. As a result, even the Class 8 magical beasts that had belonged to the Tiger Emperor and Kaiser remained silent due to this special situation. Song Qiong looked at Jian Chen and the seriousness on his face disappeared. He said to Jian Chen with a smile, "Sovereign Jian Chen, I am unsure when the winged tiger god will finish accepting its legacy. Why don't you stay at the Beast God Hall over the next few days? I'll be able to perform my duties as a host that way." Jian Chen silently pondered the offer before rejecting Song Qiong's urgings to stay. He too had no idea when the white tiger would finish accepting its legacy. It was fine if it was only a few days, but he could not afford to wait if it took several years or even longer. He had a lot of matters to attend to. The white tiger was safe on the 99th floor. Jianchen returned to the Beast God Hall under Zhangxiong's lead. He went through the floors where Kaiser and Lanky Rose stayed and found their treasuries. He took away everything that caught his eye. Jianchen found a large number of high-class monster cores in the two treasuries as well as a few ruler armaments and king armaments that they had collected. Jianchen even found a complete Saint Tier battle skill tablet and 3 Emperor armaments. The Saint Tier battle skill and Emperor's armaments all possessed a heavy, ancient presence. They were items from several tens of thousand years ago. The items were great treasures to humans, but they were of no great use to the magical beasts aside from keeping them in a collection. However, Jianchen failed to find anything that could catch his attention in the treasuries of the two Saint Emperors, to his disappointment. Jianchen and newbies left the Beast God Hall together. However, Rum Guinness stayed behind. She insisted on waiting for her child to return. Jianchen rode the Ziying sword as he flew alongside newbies at a slower speed. A gleam of cold light flickered in his eyes. He would stop and sweep the surroundings with his senses after flying a certain distance every time, as if he was looking for something. "What are you looking for?" Newbies asked out of interest. Back in the Sea Realm, one of the people who killed the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan managed to escape. "He's called Li Fengxing and he belongs to the Beast God Continent," said Jianchen. He had come to the Beast God Continent this time with two intentions in mind. One of them was to get the White Tiger to enter the Beast God Hall for its legacy, while the other was to look for Li Fengxing, who had managed to flee in the past. Jianchen had never forgotten who had contributed to the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan's death. He had been forbidden from setting foot on the Beast God Continent in the past. Only now did he possess the strength that allowed him to step onto this foreign land without worrying about the 3 Saint Emperors. Jianchen's senses could envelop an area of over 200,000 kilometers in a single instance, and that was not his limit. Even a single ant 100,000 kilometers away from him could not escape his senses. They could even reach deep into the ground, allowing him to find anything hidden deep below. The Beast God Continent was vast, but it was not difficult for Jianchen to find a person if he had made up his mind. All he needed was some time and energy. In the blink of an eye, Jianchen had searched the Beast God Continent for 3 days. In that time, he had basically looked over every inch of half the continent. Although he had not found any traces of Li Fengxing, he was not flustered at all. "In a few more days, I'll have searched every inch of this continent. As long as Li Fengxing is still here, he won't be able to escape my search. If he isn't, then I'll go to the Tianyuan continent and then the land inhabited by the 100 races. If I still can't find him, I'll search the entire world after my soul reaches the level of the origin realm," Jianchen thought. He would never let Li Fengxing off the hook, unlike what he did with Kaiser and the Tiger Emperor. In the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints, the two of them had put in the effort even if it did not amount to much at all. As a result, he had settled his enmity with the two of them then and there. Jianchen was not the only one who had wanted to kill the two of them after all. Even with Jianchen out of the picture, they were still the White Tiger's enemies. Jianchen's and newbies' senses scoured the land. They arrived in a new region and Jianchen's powerful senses swept out in an unstoppable fashion, enveloping over 200,000 kilometers. Jianchen suddenly opened his eyes a few seconds later. A bright gleam of light immediately flashed through his eyes, and he shot off as a stream of light on the Ziying sword. Newbies followed close behind him. In an ancient forest rich with the energy of the world, a simple, wooden hut stood by itself on a huge, gray rock. It creaked in the gentle breeze, like an old man at death's door. It seemed to have almost collapsed in the wind. It was extremely shabby inside. There were no furniture, like in any other house. The hut was empty. There was nothing aside from a middle-aged, burly man who was seated in there. The man's eyes were closed as a tremendous presence leaked from his body. He was clearly cultivating. The extremely lively energy around his body began to calm down, and he gradually opened his eyes. The Beast God Continent has suffered heavy losses from the battle against the world of Forsaken Saints. Many experts have died and the Beast God Hall has emptied out. It's said that cultivating is much easier within the Beast God Hall. It might have been difficult for me to take up a position in the Beast God Hall before, but it's different now, the middle-aged man murmured to himself. His eyes shone with eagerness and desire. However, the man seemed to think of something soon after. His face became extremely ugly in the blink of an eye, and he tightly clenched his fists. Deep fear seemed to appear in his eyes as he growled, "I may not have taken part in the battle against the foreign world, but I've heard from many people that a sovereign who surpassed Saint Emperor has appeared for the humans on the Tianyuan continent. I've fallen out with him back in the Sea Realm, so if he finds me, I'm done for." It's said that the human sovereign has close ties with the winged tiger god. If he accompanies the winged tiger god to the Beast God Hall, it'll be impossible for me to avoid him. With that being the case, I still can't go to the Beast God Hall. Whatever. Cultivating in the Beast God Hall really is attractive, but it's not as important as my life. I can't go to the Beast God Hall. It's better for me to cultivate here in peace. That human sovereign's busy with the matters of the foreign world, so he definitely won't have time for me. Plus, here's distant enough from here if he visits the Beast God Hall. Li Fengxing released his fist powerlessly. The eagerness he had displayed earlier had vanished from his eyes as well. As soon as he thought about how he had fallen out with the human sovereign, he felt like the end of the world had come, making him shiver inside. Li Fengxing, did you think I wouldn't find you just by fleeing to the Beast God continent? You're done for today. At this moment, a great voice boomed from outside. It caused mountains to collapse and pulverize trees. Li Fengxing's rickety old hut collapsed the tremendous sound waves. Chapter 1428. Visiting the Arctic again. The tremendous voice exploded in Li Fengxing's ears like a bolt of lightning. Not only was he deafened, but even his soul shook uncontrollably. The wooden hut had collapsed, burying Li Fengxing in its ruins. However, Li Fengxing remained seated like nothing had happened. He had become temporarily stunned. However, his dazed gaze began to shine once again. He immediately became shocked and terrified. He had not heard that voice a lot before, but it was one he would never forget, because he had thought about what the owner of the voice had said back in the Sea Realm several times over the last couple of days. The owner of the voice had now become the human sovereign. Li Fengxing shuddered and immediately paled. At that moment, his entire soul was overwhelmed by tremendous fear. Without any hesitation, he immediately burst out of the ruins and took to the sky. He wanted to devote himself to fleeing. However, as soon as he took to the sky, a stream of violet light suddenly appeared on the horizon, approaching him at an unbelievable rate. This streak of violet light was still near the horizon for one moment, but in the next, it had already arrived before him. Immediately, a pressure so powerful that it was indescribable swept forth, crushing down on Li Fengxing like a mountain. His chest became tight as breathing became difficult. Jian Chen stood before Li Fengxing on the Ziying sword with his arms crossed. He stared at Li Fengxing coldly as heavy killing intent radiated from him. He didn't expend any effort to conceal it. Li Fengxing immediately began to violently tremble the moment he saw Jian Chen. He was utterly frightened and became overwhelmed by fear. "Sovereign Jian Chen, you're the great human expert, so why do you still hang on to your past matters with someone insignificant like me?" Li Fengxing inquired with a trembling voice. At the same time, he was filled with resentment. He had originally thought that he would be fine hiding away, thinking Jian Chen would forget someone as insignificant as him long ago with his great status as the sovereign of the humans. Never did he think that Jian Chen still remembered him even after attaining such a great status, and what he found unbelievable was that Jian Chen actually came to the Beast God continent in search of him. "The Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan was slain by you. No matter who it is, whoever has taken part in the attack against the Grand Elder, I will never let them go, even if they flee to the ends of the earth. Li Fengxing, you should have made up your mind about what is going to happen today the moment you killed the Grand Elder." Jian Chen coldly informed him. "And, no, Sovereign Jian Chen, you can't blame me. I was only acting under orders," Li Fengxing hurriedly replied. He felt like he was facing a death god as he stood before Jianchen right now. He had completely given up the thought of fleeing before Jianchen, because he knew any attempt was useless. It was impossible for him to avoid being hunted down by an Origin Realm sovereign. Jianchen had already made up his mind. Of the people who had contributed to the Grand Elder of the Turtle Clan's death, he had killed everyone except for Li Fengxing. A powerful strand of sword qi flashed with white light and Li Fengxing was beheaded by Jianchen. The pure sword qi entered Li Fengxing's head through the wound and wiped out his soul. A Class 8 magical beast, equivalent to a Saint King, was easily slain. Only now did newbies arrive as a golden streak of light. He silently stared at Li Fengxing's head as it fell from the sky. He seemed to remember the story Jianchen had told him when the Grand Elder and him were attacked by Li Fengxing and the others. If it were not for the Grand Elder laying down his life, Jianchen probably would have died right there. To the Sea Realm, Jianchen said emotionlessly as he lifted up Li Fengxing's head. Newbies nodded silently and immediately ripped open a space gate leading to the Sea Realm. The two of them departed through it. As soon as Jianchen and newbies approached the protective barrier around the Sea Realm, an entrance ripped open. They immediately headed to the Turtle Clan. In the forbidden grounds of the Turtle Clan, Jianchen and newbies did not alert anyone. They silently arrived with Li Fengxing's head. Jianchen offered the magical beast's head to the Grand Elder's spirit in heaven. Jianchen remained before the Grand Elder's grave for 3 days. The two of them left silently after that. The Great Turtle Clan was now filled with experts. They possessed several Saint Kings, but no one had discovered Jianchen and newbies' arrival. Jianchen and newbies hovered 1,000 meters above the calm sea as they gazed into the distance. Jianchen said, "Newbies, I need to go to the Ice Goddess Hall in the Arctic. There is an extremely powerful and mysterious expert there. Before her, even I do not have control over my own life, so there's no need for you to come with me this time." Newbies was shocked inside and became stern. He said with a heavy voice, "There's some rough records regarding the Arctic Ice Goddess Hall in my inherited memories. It said that they're a mysteries organization that has already existed for countless years. Even the 10 protector clans do not want to offend them. I never thought that there would be an Origin Realm expert hidden there." Newbies looked at Jianchen and said, "Jianchen, I probably won't be able to help you with this trip. I'll wait for you on the Tianyuan continent." Jianchen and newbies separated. One of them headed to the Tianyuan continent while the other one made his way to the icy tundra in the north. When Jianchen's feet landed on the Arctic tundra once more, he could not help but sigh emotionally. This was the second time he had set foot on the tundra. He had been with Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu's the first time, but he was all by himself now. However, the dangers of the tundra had drastically weakened even though he was by himself. It was even possible to say that nothing could threaten him aside from the layer of mist around the Ice Goddess Hall. Seniors Rui Jin, He Yu, and Hong Lian originally fell victim because of me and were frozen into statues. I will save the 3 of them no matter what today and let the 3 of them become Saint Emperors. It's also been far longer than a year since I promised my sister. It's just that I have been too busy and couldn't make time, which is why I didn't go when the promised time came. I wonder if she's mad." Jianchen did not fly on his sword. He instead made his way into the depths of the Arctic region on foot. Although he was moving on foot, he moved extremely quickly. He would leave behind a faint afterimage with every step as he appeared several kilometers away. It seemed like he was teleporting. Jianchen encountered waves of iciness several times along the way. The streams of coldness could freeze a Saint King into a statue in a single moment, but now, Jianchen could disperse them by extending a finger and shooting out a strand of sword qi. Very soon, Jianchen saw the statues of the Saint Emperors and Class 9 magical beasts that had been left behind long ago. He could clearly see a few piles of icy slush near the statues. These piles were the result of Jianchen's attempts to free the statues of the frozen Saint Emperors when he had first come across them. This time, Jianchen only glanced over the statues indifferently. He did not stop as he continued on, disappearing in a few flashes. A faint layer of white light flickered around him as he radiated with sword qi. He protected himself with the way of the sword. The icy streams of air would shatter as soon as they came into contact with the layer of light. The deeper he ventured into the tundra, the colder it became. Even Jianchen needed to take some measures to protect himself now. After advancing a few thousand kilometers, Jianchen finally saw the white mist that seemed to connect the sky with the ground. The white mist was completely formed from the terrifying presence of profound ice. It was extremely powerful. Even Hong Lian could not venture far into it with her full strength back then. She had almost been frozen into a statue. Chapter 1429, 10,000-Year-Old Ice Souls, 1. Within the snow-white, sculpture-like ice goddess hall, the armored protector Shui sat on her bed of ice like a statue. She gradually opened her eyes before hesitating slightly. With a gentle wave of her hand, the space outside the ice goddess hall immediately began to distort. The ice goddess hall rapidly blurred in the distorted space, vanishing in the blink of an eye. The icy tundra remained the same as before, except the ice goddess hall that had stood there for countless years had vanished. I've already moved the ice goddess hall into a separate space, isolating it from the outside world. I hope Jianchen's arrival will not disturb Her Majesty, Protector Shui murmured to herself in the ice goddess hall. A sliver of helplessness was present in her icy cold and emotionless eyes. I may not be able to make things difficult for Jianchen because of Motenyun, but I can stop Her Majesty from seeing Jianchen since Her Majesty insists on giving a 10,000-year-old ice soul to him and I cannot change her mind. At the same time, Changyang Mingyue, who was in another room of the divine hall, suddenly roused from her cultivation. A sliver of doubt flickered through her eyes as she mumbled, "Weird. Why do I suddenly feel uneasy?" Changyang Mingyue pondered with a frown for a while and lost interest in cultivation. She stood up and made her way out of her room, headed to Protector Shui's side. She asked, "Protector Shui, it's been several years already, so why has my brother still not come? Has my brother come across some problems?" Protector Shui gradually opened her eyes and rather politely said, "Your Majesty, your brother is completely fine. He is currently busying himself with the matter of fending off the world of Forsaken Saints, which is why he has not come." Protector Shui was worried that Changyang Mingyue would think of going to the Tianyuan continent to help out Jianchen again, so she added, "Your brother now has the power to face off against Origin Realm fighters. The foreign invasion is not enough to threaten him." In order to make Changyang Mingyue believe what she said, Protector Shui waved her hand and used an ability to condense a mirror of ice before her. It displayed the scene when Jianchen had massacred the Saint Emperors from the foreign world with the Ziying sword. Changyang Mingyue could not help but smile happily when she saw how her brother was rampaging through the Saint Emperors in an unstoppable manner. She mumbled, "I never thought my brother was so strong. Your Majesty, there's still one more year before your profound ice body matures. At that time, you can leave the Ice Goddess Hall and go where you want to go," said Protector Shui. Anticipation appeared in Changyang Mingyue's eyes. She mumbled, "There's still one more year. In a year's time, I can go to the Tianyuan continent to look for brother." "Father, Mother, it's been so long since I've spent time with you. I wonder if you're still fine. Over the next year, I must work hard on cultivation and let the profound ice body reach perfection as soon as possible. I'll go cultivate right now." Protector Shui watched Changyang Mingyue leave. The light in her eyes flickered uneasily as she thought, "There's still one more year before Her Majesty's profound ice body reaches perfection. At that time, I'll embed all 3 ice souls into Her Majesty. That way, she cannot give them away. Jianchen, I hope you do not disturb Her Majesty within the next year." Sigh, it's just a pity that I agreed to Emotianyun that I would not make things difficult for Jianchen. Jianchen did not recklessly charge into the screen of mist. He had personally witnessed how terrifying it was before. Even with his strength now and the azulate swords, he was not confident he could get through the mist. Jianchen frowned. He had waited before the mist for a while and no changes had happened. He thought, "Last time I visited Sister, she said that this entire tundra is under Protector Shui's control. As soon as I set foot here, Protector Shui will know about my arrival and send me over. Not only have I set foot in this tundra right, but I'm just a single layer of mist away from the ice goddess hall. It's impossible for Protector Shui to have not sensed me. Jian Chen's gaze gradually grew colder as he stared at the mist that blocked his way. He thought, this can only be explained by the fact that Protector Shui does not want me in and does not want me to see my sister. I've already arrived here today, so how can I leave so easily? Suddenly, Jian Chen's presence changed. He began to radiate a surging sword intent. At that moment, he seemed to have turned into a sword instead of an ordinary human. The terrifying sword intent seemed to shatter space and make the coldness around him collapse. Only the dense layer of mist before him remained unaffected. Jian Chen was enveloped by a bright white light, completely obscuring his body. When the white light came into contact with the tough sheet of ice beneath him, the ice crisply cracked. Two dazzling lights, one violet and one azure, appeared in the white light. They surged into the sky as they transformed into the silhouettes of swords. Jian Chen's eyes shone brighter. He formed a seal with his hands and the azulate swords on his back immediately shot out in a flash. The two of them began to spin like a whirlpool as they shot into the icy mist in front of him with a dazzling light. Jian Chen did not hold back at all with that attack. He erupted with the power of the origin realm. Wherever the swords passed by, the space violently trembled, showing signs of shattering. Invisible sword chi filled the surroundings, creating huge cracks in the tough ice on the ground. The icy tundra was the domain of Protector Shui, so the space was countless times tougher than the outside world. Jian Chen's strike was enough to obliterate a world and split the Tianyuan continent into two. However, it did not even manage to cleave through the air in the icy tundra. The azulate swords shot into the icy mist as streaks of light. The mist immediately began to churn. When the mist came in contact with the sword chi from the azulate swords, it immediately emitted a hissing sound. The azulate swords shot several dozen meters into the mist in a single moment, leaving behind an open space behind them. However, the mist became more terrifying the deeper they went. After traveling 300 meters in, the light from the two swords were immediately suppressed and they lost their bright color. After traveling 360 meters in, the light on the swords was completely suppressed, pushing it back into the swords themselves. A thin layer of ice crystals rapidly formed on the swords. Chapter 1430, 10,000-Year Ice Souls, 2. After traveling another 15 meters, the terrifying coldness from the mist immediately increased by several fold. Even the swords, low-quality immortal artifacts, were unable to withstand it. The ice began to rapidly thicken on the swords, instantly turning them into two poles. Their light was completely suppressed and the swords themselves were no longer visible. This was no ordinary ice. It was terrifyingly tough, able to suppress the azulate swords, prevent them from gaining an advantage. Jian Chen stood sternly outside the mist. He could sense that his connection to the two swords was rapidly weakening. Without any hesitation, he immediately changed his hand seal and recalled the swords. When the two swords emerged from the mist, the ice on them had already reached a thickness of half a meter. The swords had lost the speed they had once possessed, so they slowly flew out. After leaving the mist, the tunnel carved by the swords slowly began to close up, filled up by the mist in the surroundings. Jian Chen stared at the thick popsicles, and powerful sword chi began to condense from the surroundings. It condensed around his right hand in a single moment, making it shine with an extremely dazzling light. He then slammed his hand toward the two swords. The attack only managed to cause a tiny crack to form on the thick ice. The moment his hand came in contact with the ice, a terrifying coldness invaded his body through his palm, rapidly extending up his arm. Jian Chen's arm immediately became covered with a layer of white frost. Not only had his entire arm been frozen, but even his blood had stopped flowing. A gleam of light flashed through Jian Chen's eyes as a large quantity of chaotic force immediately surged to his right arm from his chaotic Niden. Only after he did that did he manage to stop the spread of the coldness. He circulated the chaotic force in his right arm and ate away the terrifying coldness that remained within him, gradually regaining use of his arm. I never thought that this coldness would be so terrifying, Jianchen thought. This was just a single strand of coldness from the azulate swords. If he had entered the layer of mist before him, he would have received the direct attacks of the coldness. He probably would not have been able to last for a few seconds before being frozen into a statue. Jianchen did not attempt to smash through the thick ice again as he stared at the two frozen swords. Around half a minute later, the ice on the two swords became covered with dense cracks. After a series of cracking sounds, the cracks spread across the ice like a web as azure and violet light poured out from them. Bang! Finally, the ice loudly exploded and revealed the two dazzling swords inside. Without the support of the coldness from the mist, the ice was unable to keep the two swords trapped. Protector Shui's intentions are very obvious. How do I get in if I can't get through this mist? Jianchen deeply frowned. He knew that he could do nothing about the layer of mist before him with his current strength. Not even reciprocity experts would have been able to make it through the mist. Changyang Mingyue returned to her room to cultivate in the Ice Goddess Hall, but she was unable to settle down no matter what. She sat on a bone-piercingly cold piece of ice as she rubbed her chin with one hand. Suspicion filled her eyes as she mumbled, "Odd. Why do I suddenly feel so uneasy? I can't settle down no matter what." Changyang Mingyue silently wondered to herself silently after pondering her thoughts for some time. Something must have happened, and it's connected to me. I just happened to have learned the profound ice mirror technique from Protector Shui a few days ago, which allows me to see anything anywhere. I may be restricted by my strength and my mastery over the technique, preventing me from seeing the entire Tianyuan continent like Protector Shui, but I should be able to see anything I want within a radius of 10,000 kilometers. Changyang Mingyue immediately used the secret technique. Like Protector Shui, she condensed a mirror from profound ice in the air. The mirror was snow-white before some blurry scenes flashed through it. This was the first time Changyang Mingyue had used this secret technique, so she was not very good at controlling it yet. It took her several seconds before the mirror finally cleared up. Displayed was a world of snow and ice. It was the tundra in the Arctic. She could clearly see a corner of the entire Arctic. It was only a corner, but it was an expanse of almost 10,000 kilometers. Although the Ice Goddess Hall had been hidden away by Protector Shui, having disappeared from the tundra and seemingly entered another space, it was not enough to stop the technique from working. The profound ice mirror technique was extremely wondrous. Not only could the user of the technique gain a clear view of everything within 10,000 kilometers, but they could clearly sense all the presences in the area as well. Basically, the moment the technique worked, Changyang Mingyue sensed an extremely familiar presence. She immediately gathered her attention to look at it and became dazed. Surprise and joy filled her face as she uncontrollably exclaimed, "Brother, brother! I see my brother, Protector Shui." The next moment, Changyang Mingyue discovered that Jianchen had been stopped by the layer of mist. Her snow-white face immediately became furious, and with a single flash, she vanished. She angrily ran to where Protector Shui stayed. At the same time, Protector Shui gently sighed on her bed. The same moment she sighed, the terrifying wall of mist in front of Jianchen began to violently surge. Under Jianchen's interested gaze, the mist quickly parted open, and in the blink of an eye, a 3-meter-wide tunnel leading inside formed silently. "Come on in," Protector Shui's cold voice rang in Jianchen's head. He fell silent, before entering with the azulate swords on his back. As Jianchen passed through the mist, Protector Shui returned the Ice Goddess Hall to where it was before. The exquisite, crystal-like divine hall stood there as if it had fused with the world. It gave off an ancient and desolate sense of grandeur. Jianchen glanced over and his eyes immediately narrowed. He failed to find Rui Jin, Hong Lian, and He Yu where they had been frozen before. He looked around and did not find any traces of the three of them at all. Have they been moved to some other place by Protector Shui? Jianchen thought. He had come to visit his sister as well as to save the three of them this time. "Brother!" At this moment, A joyous voice rang out from the distance. Changyang Mingyue stood at the entrance of the divine hall as she gazed at Jianchen. Her face was filled with joy and deep concern. Chapter 1431, 10,000-Year Ice Souls, 3, Sister. Jianchen beamed with delight when he saw Changyang Mingyue. He temporarily put the matter of Ruijin, Hong Lian, and He Yu aside and immediately walked over. Brother, you finally come. I've waited for you for so many years already. It's been way more than the single year we agreed on before. Changyang Mingyue brightly smiled at Jianchen as she stood at the entrance of the divine hall. She had spoken like she chastising Jianchen, but she had no intentions of angering him at all. Jianchen smiled apologetically. He had always been busy with the revival of the sea goddess during that time. He had gone into the Sea of Despair with Yadrium in search of the sea goddess Supreme Divine Hall, and just that had taken a very long time. When the two of them had returned with the Divine Hall, the agreed time had passed long ago. Afterward, he had to handle the sea goddess resurrection ceremony and stop the two other hall elders. Returning to the Tianyuan continent after that, he needed to handle the invasion of the foreign world, so he was just busy, forcing him to temporarily put off the promise, all the way until today. Jianchen gave Changyang Mingyue a simple explanation and Changyang Mingyue immediately smiled. Brother, you don't need to explain things to me. I'm not blaming you. Changyang Mingyue gently sighed as she reached there. It's just a pity that I haven't been able to leave the Ice Goddess Hall in all these years, making you suffer so much all by yourself. Otherwise, I would have helped you no matter what and taught all those enemies that have made things difficult for you a lesson. Jianchen smiled from the bottom of his heart when he heard her words. He said, Sister, I now possess that strength. All my past enemies are no longer my opponent, even if they are Saint Emperors. Yeah, you've become so impressive now. You conducted a slaughter against the Saint Emperors of the foreign world. None of them were your opponent. You killed at least 200 of them. I learned all this from Protector Shui. Sigh, and I had thought that I was very powerful now, but I've only just discovered that I'm still not as great as you. Changyang Mingyue smiled. She did not become depressed at all and became happy for Jianchen instead. She felt proud of her brother's strength. Brother, why don't you quickly tell me about the interesting things you've come across over the past few years? I'm extremely curious as to how your strength has increased so quickly. Changyang Mingyue asked out of interest. Jianchen gently smiled and soon gave a brief overview of everything that had happened to him over the past few years. However, he described many events in a single sentence and did not go into detail, including the matter regarding the Xianhuang microcosm. It was not because he did not trust Changyang Mingyue, but he was worried about revealing something to Protector Shui, who had an unfathomable strength. Jianchen did not know how strong Protector Shui was even now, whether she was of the origin realm or at godhood. He believed that even his communication techniques would not be able to hide what he said from her ears. Sister, Seniors Ruijin, Hong Lian, and He Yu who came with me a few years ago were sealed up here by Protector Shui. I am completely in debt to the three of them. It's even possible to say that I would not still be alive if it wasn't for the three of them. Please help me persuade Protector Shui to release the three seniors, said Jianchen. He knew that he could only rely on his sister to save the three of them with his current strength. What? Something like that happened? This Protector Shui is going more and more overboard, even laying her hands on your saviors. Let's go. I'll take you to see Protector Shui right now. Changyang Mingyue was furious. She really cared about her brother. To her, his saviors were her saviors as well. Protector Shui's treatment of the three of them had angered her once again. Changyang Mingyue immediately brought Jianchen into the Ice Goddess Hall. As soon as he stepped into the Divine Hall, a bone-piercing chill appeared and caused Jianchen to shiver uncontrollably. He immediately began to circulate the energy within him to resist it. This was the first time Jianchen had entered the extremely mysterious Ice Goddess Hall, so he could not help but look around. He discovered that the interior of the Divine Hall was snow-white, completely constructed from ice crystals. It seemed just like a world of ice. Besides that, the mysterious Divine Hall was not really eye-catching. However, Jianchen understood that behind the divine hall's ordinary appearance was something terrifying that he could not sense. He knew that it was not because the divine hall was ordinary, but it was because he was not strong enough and unable to see through it. Along the way, Jianchen discovered a few other people cultivating within the divine hall. There were many saint rulers and saint kings and even quite a few heaven saint masters. They all worked as servants. All the people that Changyang Mingyue came across bowed politely toward her. They were extremely courteous. These people should all be from the Tianyuan continent. Jianchen glanced at them casually and discovered that they were all human. Very soon, Jianchen was brought before Protector Shui with Changyang Mingyue's guidance. Protector Shui remained seated on her bed in her silver-white armor the same as before, and she only stood up to bow to Changyang Mingyue the moment she saw her. However, before changing Mingyue could ask about anything, she said to Jianchen, "The three of them were saved soon after you left. They are no longer on this tundra." Jianchen became stunned and was overwhelmed by disbelief. Was there still anyone who could save the three of them with Protector Shui's strength? "Senior, who saved them?" Jianchen asked with clasped hands. "Mo Tianyun," Protector Shui responded coldly. "What? Senior Mo Tianyun did? Is Senior Mo Tianyun still on the continent?" Jianchen was shocked as his heart churned. This matter was just far too astounding. It was only a clone of Mo Tianyun. He probably just sent it down from a higher world. I can't sense the presence of that clone any longer now. It must have dispersed. After all, it's not that easy to come to this world, Protector Shui replied. Jianchen looked at Protector Shui in surprise. He felt that she was rather different today. According to his understanding of her, she would never have wasted words on others with her pride, yet she had become patient enough today to explain things to him. Today was quite an abnormality. "Protector Shui, are you looking down on me? Since the three seniors were my brother's saviors, they're my saviors as well. You actually trapped my saviors here. You really are going more and more overboard." Changyang Mingyue stared at Protector Shui coldly. Protector Shui was powerful, but she was not afraid of her. This one understands. This one trapped them only because they possessed saint artifacts that did not belong to this world, Protector Shui politely responded. "Let's just leave the matter at this since the seniors have already been freed, sister," Jianchen quickly added, seeing how Changyang Mingyue was still furious. Protector Shui was a powerful expert after all. She possessed her own pride, so he did not wish for his sister to press her too much and end up with some unexpected outcomes. Changyang Mingyue snorted coldly, "Since my brothers put it like that, I won't dwell on this matter anymore. However, I don't wish to see something like this happen again, Protector Shui." This one understands. Protector Shui remained very polite. She did not feel displeased at all even while being scolded by Changyang Mingyue, who had not even reached Origin Realm, despite being a god king. It was as if this was supposed to happen. This was because Changyang Mingyue was the reincarnation of the snow goddess. Similar to the ice goddess, she was her master. Changyang Mingyue and Jianchen left. The two of them strolled through the divine hall casually as they talked about their daily lives. "There's still one more year before my profound ice body matures. At that time, I'll be able to leave this place, so don't worry, brother. The next time the world of Forsaken Saints invades, I'll fight alongside you. Don't underestimate me, all right? I may not be as strong as you right now, I'm only a Saint Emperor, but once my profound ice body matures, I'll immediately reach the Origin Realm. Coupled with the 10,000-year-old ice souls, I'll only become even more powerful. Even you might not end up being my opponent," Changyang Mingyue giggled. Afterward, she immediately pulled out a fist-sized piece of ice crystal with a flip of her hand. "Brother, this is a 10,000-year-old ice soul. I have 3 of these." Protector Shui said that each one of them can only be condensed after 1,000,000 years, so it's extremely precious. "I'll give you one as a gift from me." Changyang Mingyue passed the ice soul to Jianchen. Jianchen's eyes narrowed. He stared at the 10,000-year-old ice soul as shock gradually appeared. He could sense that the energy within the ice soul was even more terrifying than a 5th-grade violet cloud peaches. It possessed several times the energy, possibly even several dozen times the energy in a peach. At the same time, the energy within the ice soul was very gentle, just like the peaches. It could easily be absorbed. Sister, this is for you to increase your strength. I can't accept it. Jianchen immediately declined the gift. He knew that the 10,000-year-old ice soul was even more precious than the 5th-grade violet cloud peaches, which was exactly why he could not accept it. The 3 10,000-year-old ice souls were the most precious items on his sister. They were to increase her own strength, and every one that she lost would reduce her strength in the future. On the other hand, he possessed quite a few heavenly resources similar to the ice soul. They may not be as precious, but he had many more of them. Changyang Mingyue frowned and her face immediately darkened. She was displeased and said, as if she was scolding a junior, "Brother, this is a gift from your sister. You have to accept it whether you want to or not, or you'll be looking down on your sister." Sister, this? Jianchen was troubled. He wished that she would use all 3 ice souls and would become even more powerful. Take it. You have to accept my gifts. I'll stay by your side until you fully absorb it. You're not allowed to take it out, Changyang Mingyue said without giving him any room to reject her gift. She did not let him take the ice soul away because she was afraid that Protector Shui would steal it back. Chapter 1432, The 5th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 1. Finally, Jianchen ran out of options. He could only accept the extremely precious 10,000-year-old ice soul. The extreme coldness within the ice soul had been removed, but it was unable to change its base properties. As a result, it still felt like ice to Jianchen when he held it in his hand. However, he did not feel cold at all. Instead, he felt warm inside. He understood just how important the ice soul was to Changyang Mingyue. If it was used by her, the increase in strength she would gain would definitely be greater than if it was used on himself. After all, he practiced the chaotic body. The energy required to progress through each layer was incalculably large. However, Changyang Mingyue did not think about herself at all. She was willing to progress a little slower just to help him, which touched Jianchen. Brother, I'll find a room for you and then I will personally watch over you so that you can absorb the entire ice soul. Changyang Mingyue pulled Jianchen toward a room meant for cultivation. Jianchen did not resist. He knew just how determined his sister was and that it would be useless no matter how he resisted. All he could do was burn her kindness deeply into his heart and never forget about it. Jianchen entered a cavern of ice under Changyang Mingyue's lead. Coldness filled the room. It was abundant like the energy of the world. A piece of cushion-like, pure white ice sat in the center of the room and gave off waves of coldness. Brother, Protector Shui has said that this piece of profound ice is extraordinary. It will bring you benefits if you cultivate on it. You can emerge after you completely absorb the ice soul, Changyang Mingyue said as she pointed at the piece of ice. After that, she closed the door to the room with a wave of her hand, leaving Jianchen in there all by himself. She sat down outside to personally keep guard for Jianchen. Protector Shui, you can't change matters that I've decided on. I know you're thinking about me and that you want me to become even stronger, but it's been tough on my brother in the years he's spent outside. He may no longer be weaker than me now, but I know that he has risked his life to obtain his current powers. When he was suffering outside and being chased around the world by others, I did nothing as a sister. I was unable to help him, but I have the power now. I have to help him this time no matter what. This is my responsibility as a sister, Changyang Mingyue uttered inside as she sat outside the room with her eyes closed. Protector Shui, you won't be able to take the ice soul from my brother with me here. Even if the day that my profound ice body has to be delayed indefinitely, I will stay here until my brother emerges. The room filled with coldness was hazy. Jianchen sat on the ice as he held the ice soul in his hand. He stared at the ice soul with mixed emotions. He was unable to settle down for the moment. At this moment, a cool feeling radiated from the ice below. It entered Jianchen's body and moved about. The cool feeling clearly was not as simple as a strand of coldness. Its appearance gradually ate away all of Jianchen's mixed emotions and allowed him to brush aside his random thoughts. Sister. Jian-Chen muttered inside before gathering his concentration. He began to cultivate with all his attention, absorbing the energy within the ice soul. Although the tremendous energy within the ice soul had been condensed from extreme coldness, the formation of each ice soul took 1,000,000 years. After such a long time, the energy within the ice soul had changed long ago. Not only was the coldness removed, making the energy in it gentle, but it was also extremely pure and powerful. When the first strand of energy was absorbed by Jian-Chen's body, the thin strand immediately began to rapidly expand like a balloon, becoming 100 times its size and completely filling Jian-Chen's dantian. In the end, his dantian was unable to contain all of the energy, leading to some leaking out into his body, making it swell. Jian-Chen was delighted inside. He had estimated the value of the ice soul before, but to his surprise, the ice soul had far exceeded any of his estimations. I wonder if I can reach the 5th layer of the chaotic body with just this ice soul. Jian-Chen became hasty as he immediately began to refine the energy in the ice soul. As the energy of the ice soul was endlessly absorbed by Jian-Chen, the chaotic Niden in his dantian gradually grew larger. More and more chaotic force accumulated within it as he rapidly approached the 5th layer of the chaotic body. Jian-Chen would have definitely consumed a lot of time to reach the 5th layer of the chaotic body if it was not for the ice soul. After all, the energy required to reach the 5th layer was just far too tremendous, far more than what he had needed to reach the 4th layer. Although he had a large amount of immortal tier heavenly resources he had obtained from the Xianhuang microcosm, he would develop an immunity to their effects if he consumed too many of them in a short time frame. The effects of the heavenly resources would be heavily reduced, so Jian-Chen was unable to devour the heavenly resources to reach the 5th layer. After all, he did not have the white tiger's natural advantage, which enabled it to consume heavenly resources endlessly. The appearance of the ice soul, without a single doubt, was giving Jian-Chen exactly what he needed when he needed it. The time he required to reach the 5th layer would be greatly reduced. Jian-Chen absorbed the ice soul extremely quickly. The fist-sized ice soul had vanished in just 2 months, having all been refined into chaotic force. Unfortunately, Jian-Chen still had not reached the 5th layer after absorbing the ice soul with his chaotic body. He was only an inch away from the 5th layer. The chaotic Niden in his dantian had become the size of a fist. He had reached the peak of the 4th layer, the limit of what he could achieve right now. If he could take one step further, he would immediately reach the 5th layer. Jian-Chen fell silent as he observed his chaotic Niden within him. He then clenched his teeth, and with a flip of his hand, he immediately took out an energy crystal from a Xianhuang beast. As soon as the energy crystal had appeared, a terrifying pulse of energy was emitted, filling the entire room. At the same time, Protector Shui, who sat on her bed in another area of the divine hall, sensed something. She slowly opened her eyes and glanced where Jian-Chen was cultivating. Her gaze was deep, as if she could directly see Jian-Chen beyond the various walls of ice in the room. However, Protector Shui retracted her gaze as if nothing had happened, slowly closing her eyes again. The Ice Goddess Hall is in danger right now. There are many things I don't care about and won't care about, but I hope that Jian-Chen really will behave how Mo Tianyun has described him in the future, where he will assist the Ice Goddess Hall in getting through this disaster, thought Protector Shui. Chapter 1433, The 5th Layer of the Chaotic Body, 2. I hope this energy crystal can help me reach the 5th layer of the chaotic body successfully, Jian-Chen murmured to himself as he gazed at the energy crystal in his hand. This was one of the 2 Class 10 Xianhuang Beast energy crystals he had obtained back in the Xianhuang microcosm. Back then, I was too weak and lacked an understanding of the origin realm, so it was difficult for me to distinguish energy crystals beyond the 9th class. Now that I look at it, this energy crystal is nowhere near the 10th class. It's at least a Class 11 or even a Class 12 crystal, and this was also the weaker energy crystal out of the 2 I obtained. The other energy crystal must have reached the 13th class at the very least. Jian-Chen gently rubbed the energy crystal with his thumb. His eyes grew brighter and brighter as they became filled with his eagerness. If it were not for the ice soul, Jianchen would not have chosen to absorb one of the two most powerful energy crystals he had ever obtained, because he was not confident that one would be enough for him to break through. The energy crystal was of an extremely high quality, but it was akin to monster cores after all. The benefits it could bring were nothing like the ice soul or the high-grade violet cloud peaches, so even if he absorbed it, he would not break through. However, he had now reached the peak of the fourth layer with the ice soul. This was the best moment for him to make a breakthrough. Jianchen sucked in a deep breath and slowly calmed himself. He immediately gathered his concentration and devoted himself to refining the energy crystal in his hand. He planned to reach the fifth layer in a single stroke. The fifth layer of the chaotic body was extremely significant to Jianchen. Not only would it drastically increase his strength, but it would give him the ability to refine the yin-yang saint rock. 7 days later, a loud crack finally rang out. Jianchen was filled with eagerness. A ball of extremely terrifying chaotic force filled his body, and at that moment, his body suddenly began to swell. He became a giant, as if he had been blown up like a balloon. Every breakthrough of the chaotic body would be equivalent to the chaotic Niden shattering, and each shattering would bring tremendous pain. The muscles on Jianchen's face twitched as his forehead became covered with cold sweat in a single moment. His face had already paled. Even though his chaotic Niden had already shattered several times before, he still found the ripping pain unbearable. However, Jianchen was willing to accept a great increase in strength for bearing with the intense pain. Vast amounts of chaotic force rampaged through Jianchen's body before slowly being compressed. Virtually at every moment, the chaotic force within Jianchen's body shrank, undergoing a process of compression, slowly changing his fourth layer chaotic force to the fifth layer. At the same time, Jianchen's body endured the battering of the strengthened chaotic force. His flesh also toughened at a visible rate, becoming even more powerful. This process lasted for several days and Jianchen finally reached the fifth layer of the chaotic body. Both the toughness of his body and his chaotic force had increased in quality. The chaotic Niden in his dantian had been reduced to the size of a soybean once again. Jianchen slowly opened his eyes. He sensed the strengthened chaotic force in his chaotic Niden and could not help but smile. He was filled with joy. The energy crystal in his hand had not been fully absorbed. He had only used a third of the energy present. My chaotic Niden is too small right now. The chaotic force stored inside is limited. Although the chaotic force will be consumed very slowly, the next wave of invasions from the world of Forsaken Saints should not be too far off. At that time, the battle will definitely be even more intense and even more difficult, Jianchen pondered. He chose to continue his secluded cultivation and continued to refine the energy crystal in his hand. A few more days passed and the energy crystal in Jianchen's hands finally disappeared. However, he now needed several times or even more than 10 times the amount of energy now that he had reached the fifth layer, so the amount of chaotic force he managed to refine from the remaining 2/3 of the energy crystal was extremely limited. It had only increased his chaotic Niden to the size of 1.5 soybeans. The further I progress, the more energy I require. When my chaotic body was still at the fourth layer, a single ice soul was enough to make me reach the peak of the fourth layer. I probably need 10 of them to reach the peak of the fifth layer. If I want to reach the sixth layer, probably even 100 won't be enough. Jianchen sighed inside. The chaotic body really was very powerful, but there was endless pangs of pain behind its strength. However, I have truly become a Saint Emperor now. I have the battle prowess of a Saint Emperor without my comprehension of the way of the sword and without the azulate swords. If I use the way of the sword, there should be no Saint Emperors that can hold their ground against me. If I use the azulate swords as well, Jianchen wondered. Only a while later did he think, I should be able to battle against the clone of the Spirit King. However, his comprehension of the way of the sword is greater than mine. The Spirit King. Jianchen felt very pressured as soon as he thought about the Spirit King, because he was just too powerful. He had sent just a single clone, yet it required Xiao Ling, the sea goddess, and him to work together to fend off. If he had come personally, Even all the power this world possessed would not be enough to stop him. Although the world had gained 2 origin realm experts, Yang Lai and Ge Haidao, while the 8 other founding ancestors of the still not awakened, Jianchen understood that their strength had fallen from the origin realm to Saint Emperor after all. Even with the assistance of their saint artifacts, they were receival experts at most. The disparity against the Spirit King was just far too great, so they would not be much help in an actual battle against him. This was unless they recovered their peak strength and reached the origin realm again. And even if they returned to the origin realm in terms of strength, there were other origin realm experts in the world of Forsaken Saints aside from the Spirit King, and they outnumbered Jianchen's world by quite a lot. I can now absorb the Yin and Yang Qi from the Yin Yang Saint Rock, but I need the assistance of the Heavenly Enchantress. Sigh. Jianchen's head ached. He became filled with helplessness as soon as he recalled the Heavenly Enchantress. He gently shook his head and opened the room's door. As soon as the door was opened, Jianchen saw his sister seated there. He evidently became stunned. Changyang Mingyue sensed his emergence as well and stood up. She looked at him and became surprised. She said, "Brother, you've absorbed the 10,000-year-old ice soul so quickly? Are you sure you haven't hidden it away in your space ring?" Changyang Mingyue suddenly became stern. She said seriously, "Brother, you have to listen to me. You have to absorb the entirety of the ice soul, or I won't let you leave here." Chapter 1434. The Truth Behind the Seal. Sister, how is it possible for me to not listen to you? You got me to fully absorb the ice soul, so why wouldn't I listen to you? I've already fully absorbed the ice soul you gave me. Jianchen smiled helplessly. He possessed the chaotic body, so the rate he could refine energy was incomparable to ordinary cultivators. In this period of seclusion, not only had he fully absorbed the ice soul, he had even refined an origin realm Xianhuang beast's energy crystal. Really? Have you really absorbed the ice soul so quickly? According to Protector Shui, even I need at least several years to fully absorb an ice soul. How did you do it in a few short months? Changyang Mingyue suspiciously questioned him. However, she seemed to think of something very soon. She appeared enlightened as she said to herself, "I understand now. It must be because of Brother's extraordinary talent, which is why you could absorb the ice soul in such a short time. This also explains why Brother's strength has been increasing so rapidly." Jianchen smiled but did not give a detailed explanation. He said, "Sister, I've stayed here for long enough. I plan on returning today. As time goes on, the next wave of invasions from the foreign world grows near. I must return to the Tianyuan continent to make preparations, but I want to see Protector Shui before I leave. I have a few questions I want to ask her." Changyang Mingyue also understood the precarious situation of the current Tianyuan continent, so she did not urge Jianchen to stay. She said, "Brother, once my profound ice body matures, I'll come to the Tianyuan continent to look for you. We can fend off the invasion of the foreign world together. Let's go, I'll take you to see Protector Shui. Her strength is unfathomable where even I can't sense how great it is. If there's anything you're unsure about, feel free to ask her." Jianchen obviously met Protector Shui without any obstructions under Changyang Mingyue's personal guidance. Very soon, he saw her again in the same room of ice. "Speak, what do you have to ask this king? I can answer some things you should know seeing how Her Majesty is your sister." After bowing to Changyang Mingyue, Protector Shui turned her icy cold gaze toward Jianchen. Jianchen bowed to Protector Shui and got straight to the point. "Senior, our world's currently sealed, preventing the cultivators of this world from reaching the origin realm. It's also lead to no origin realm experts for the 4 races since ancient times. May I ask if this seal was cast down by Senior? The world may be sealed, preventing everyone from reaching the origin realm aside from species with powerful bloodlines and natural spirits of the world. However, you walk a different path, where you don't need origin energy to reach the origin realm. As a result, the seal cannot stop you. Since it's no problem to you, why are you sticking your nose into matters that you don't need to care about? You cannot interfere with these matters," Protector Shui coldly responded. But this matter is connected to my great-grandfather. He's currently at the peak of Saint Emperor and is unable to reach the origin realm because of the existence of this seal. His lifespan is limited to 10,000 years. This is how it's connected to me. And the Tianyuan continent is currently facing the threat of the world of Forsaken Saints. If we do not increase the number of origin realm experts we have, we will not be able to stop them. Senior, please release the seal in consideration of all the life in this world so that they have a chance of reaching the origin realm, Jian Chen sincerely said, almost like he was pleading. In his eyes, Protector Shui's strength was unfathomable. It was extremely likely that she had already reached godhood, so if she did not remove the seal, Yang Lai and the others would never be able to reach the origin realm. Although he believed that he would possess the power to break through the seal in 10,000 years, there were quite a few origin realm experts in the foreign world. No one knew whether Yang Lai and the others would survive the coming battles. After all, they had fallen from the origin realm to Saint Emperor and were only able to display the strength of the origin realm through their saint artifacts. However, that was only the strength of the weakest origin realm experts. Once they came across true origin realm experts, it would be very difficult for them to stop them. Leave. I am unable to remove this seal, Protector Shui said coldly. Jian Chen became bitter. He had known long ago that the outcome would be like this, but he still felt extremely depressed. Once the seal was removed, Yang Lai and Gui Hai Dao would still be able to reach the origin realm even without origin energy, because they had stored some origin energy in their saint artifacts. If the seal was not removed, Yang Lai and Gui Hai Dao would still not be able to break through even with their origin energy. Protector Shui, I order you to remove the seal immediately, Changyang Mingyue said with an irrefutable tone. Protector Shui dared not to behave as indifferent as she was with Jian Chen. She gently sighed as a sliver of helplessness appeared in her cold eyes. She said, Your Majesty, I really do not have the ability to remove the seal. I may not have cast the seal, but I know who did. It was cast by Her Majesty. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult for the matters here to avoid the divination of the experts from the saints' world. Otherwise, quite a few people from the saints' world would have come looking for Your Majesty. Jian Chen was disappointed when he heard that. He had never thought that the seal was actually cast down by the Ice Goddess. The Ice Goddess was a grand prime, a supreme expert who stood at the apex of the higher world. Even after 10,000 years, he might not be able to gain the strength to break through a seal cast down by someone so strong. At the same time, he worried about his sister. Jian Chen left the Ice Goddess Hall. Although he had not managed to get the seal removed, he had learned exactly who had cast it down as well as who was responsible for the missing history from the ancient era. It was definitely Protector Shui's handiwork, and her intentions were to prevent anyone from entering the saints' world and exposing what was happening here, which would have endangered his sister. Although the method was shocking and extremely brutal, Jian Chen was unable to determine whether Protector Shui was right or wrong. If it was himself, what would he have done to protect the people most important to him? Jian Chen left the icy tundra and returned to the Tianyuan continent on his sword. However, Jian Chen suddenly came to a halt at this moment. He gazed into the distance as his eyes shone. He was gazing in the direction of the wasteland continent. Even though the wasteland continent was extremely far away, Jian Chen could still sense an extremely tremendous pulse in that direction. There's more than 10 members of the 100 races that have reached Saint Emperor and several dozen are reaching Saint King at the same time, Jian Chen murmured. He knew that it must have been Tai Ta using the violet cloud peaches to increase the strength of the strongest experts of the 100 races, which was why so many people had broken through. Tai Ta's already begun to move. I can't fall behind either, Jian Chen said before speeding up. He disappeared into the horizon as a violet streak of light. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.